3, 2, 1, and we're on.
So, Jackson, anything exciting happened yesterday? I mean, I had a good day yesterday. What about
Mhm.
you? Anything interesting happen?
It was very interesting, to say the least.
Uh,
There's been a lot of crying, at least here where I'm at, and a lot of getting mad.
mm,
We're still kind of going through the 5 stages of grief. Let's put it that way.
mm. So you're telling me you had an overall good day, but your fan base didn't. I wonder why. Oh, and that reminds me. That reminds me. I think I know why. I think I know why. Would it have something to do with the fact Alabama got left out of the playoffs? Would that be it?
Yep. I
Mm.
think honestly
Well,
that push for SMU on air because I think ESPN realized, okay, more people are gonna watch if SMU's in. Because if they see
yes.
Alabama getting it, it's the spoiled rich kid getting what they want all the time, like always.
Mm.
So that's why I was like, where you saw plenty of shows and plenty of people on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, they were all talking about how happy they are that Alabama's out.
Mm. Well, I'll say this for you, Jackson. Hopefully Crimson Tide Nation won't start complaining about their non-conference schedule, saying we need to play these cupcakes, because if they start that, it could get ugly.
Jeez. Oh,
Oh,
we'll
we're
get.
on air! Holy crap, we're on air!
Well, yeah.
I was just having a
Yeah,
normal
you
con.
didn't notice we were
I was
on
just
air.
having.
It said live. It's like it's not like we're not like good grief.
Oh my goodness! Well,
Outtake of the year, ladies and
no,
gentlemen.
no. In all
Hot
seriousness,
night.
though, no, I
Nah, he didn't say anything too revealing. No worries, everybody.
no. But in all seriousness, though, I thought we would start that way, just to break the ice, just get into it. It's like ripping a band-aid off.
Oh man,
But yes,
chats go
ladies and
wild.
gentlemen. Oh no.
What's up, Doc P?
Oh my gosh. See, this is what happens. Me and Jackson, we're just two guys that'll talk our heads off if you let us. But this show is going to be mostly about you guys. After we get our vending sessions, our thoughts out, we're going to put the call-in link in here in a few minutes, and we're going to let you come in, and you could chat about what happened yesterday or 24 hours ago. Because that's right, folks. We're going to be talking about Selection Sunday, talking about Alabama, SMU. We'll talk about the seedings. We'll talk about a little bit of everything. Talk about if they got it right, got it wrong. But mostly, I'm sure this will be an Alabama venting session on Jackson's part because he's got a lot of things to say.
Not for
But
me too much. I won't make y'all suffer too much. I promise.
I'll say this. I'll say this. I think Jackson, this year's 12-team playoff, the bracket, I feel like everyone's got a pretty good chance to win it.
Yeah,
And let's just start with the elephant in the room, Jackson. Let's just start it off. Let's
that's
get it
one
out of the
way to
way.
put it.
Yeah, I didn't realize I did that, but yes, let's talk about that elephant then. The big question was Alabama, SMU. Who gets in? Who gets left out? Guess what? The committee actually did it. They grew a set and they put their cash cow out Alabama, and SMU thus has a trip to Happy Valley on their next schedule with Rhett Lashley. But you know something? I won't speak to this much because I'm not the Bama man here. You are, Jackson, so I'll let you speak to this more. But there's certain Crimson Tide fans who are throwing a hissy fit about their non-con schedule, saying we
Our
don't
AD
need to play
was complaining
Wisconsin.
about it.
Yes. So, Jackson, what do you think of all that? Like you're the Bama man. Walk us through it. Do you think?
Well,
what do you think about all this complaining?
and
Take
Clint
away.
Moses says that Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner, cried before the Alabama AD did, beat him to the punch. You know, we talked a lot about it off air and on air that I always like seeing Blue Bloods schedule harder games, like having tougher non-con schedules. I don't like the easy non-con schedule because, I mean, what am I going to do? Get excited about it? No, I'm going to be pitiful, be in a bad mood because it's a boring week. But at the same time, I understand like it's healthier for the players. So I understand that. So I don't really like the November cupcake games. They kind of suck, really. Like I just watch them for the players, really. But when our AD was getting himself community noted and ratioed on Twitter/ads for his take on when he just cut down on some of these Power 5 games, these Power 4 games. Like, no. You lost to Vanderbilt and you got ass blasted 24-3 by Oklahoma. It is not the non-con schedule. Oh, but a sits and sits SEC team could beat a sits and sits Big 12 team, a sits and sits Mount West team, or a sits and sits ACC team. Sits and sits is sits and sits. Oh my God. I mean, I know I'm going to get a lot of pushback, and, I'm going to have like some people tell me, like, oh, well, you don't know this, you don't know that. It's like a 6-6 SEC team would beat the hell out of a 10-2 ACC team. Really? Okay. Put him then.
I'm not so sure about. I'm not so sure about that.
Right?
Depending on what 6-16 we're talking about, because they're like, if you're talking like a 6-6 Mississippi State or something like that, compared to like a Miami or a Clemson, that's pushing the envelope.
I mean, we did it to ourselves by getting smacked off the face of the earth by Oklahoma. It's just like, my God. Oh, but it's our non-con schedule. Well, I'm sorry. Our non-con schedule was Western Kentucky, South Florida, a Wisconsin team that lost their quarterback in the first quarter, finished the season at 5-7, and we have freaking Mercer. But the non-con schedule.
Yeah. Here's the here's the thing, and I want to say this, and you can speak to this too, Jackson. Here's the thing. I understand teams, we've talked about the benefits of playing cupcakes, right? It's good for the team to get their reps in, and those little schools get the money. I'm cool with that. That's fine. And I'm with you, Jackson. If you want to play those type FCS opponents, week 0, week 1, cool. No problems, no issues. Look, I'm cool with it. I'm not gonna sit here and throw a hissy fit and be like, I'll be a little upset that we don't have any marquee games, but it'll be like, okay. And it kind of like, it'd be just like, okay, everyone's benefit, we're good. But for them to say, oh, it's our non-con, we need to schedule like Penn State, that's what drives me nuts. And the fact Jack said that's what they're blaming it on, I know, like, that's what's pissing me off, pardon my language.
Right.
But, because here's the thing, Jackson, whose fault is it that you lost to Vanderbilt?
Ours.
Whose fault is it you lost to Oklahoma? Two of teams that, exactly. And just to think, Jackson, we're not talking the Oklahoma of Baker Mayfield's and Kyler Murray's. We're talking Jackson Arnold, Oklahoma, a team that could not stay healthy if they tried. They were missing, I think, their 5 key wide receivers, and Jackson Arnold just went up and down the field. The OU defense. And listen, this may sound harsh, but let's be honest. Alabama's got no one to blame but themselves for their piss poor performances in those games. I'm sorry, Jackson, if that ticks you off, but it's the truth. It's not your non-con. It's not your non-con. I'm tired of hearing people say our non-con, because it's not just Alabama. It's everybody. All these powerhouses that don't get in, they're like, it's our non-con, it's our non-con. Win.
It's like a kid throwing a
what?
fit in the grocery store because they're mad that they didn't get their Cocoa Puffs or their freaking Fruit Loops.
And then you got Miami over here. They're complaining about, oh, we beat Florida. I guess that don't count for anything now. And here's the thing with that. I'll give Miami credit for playing that game. But guess what, Miami? You did the same thing Alabama did. You screwed up at the wrong time. You've got no one to blame but yourself. It's time for you teams to take accountability.
Yep.
Go ahead, Jackson.
Our friend SEC Football is asking, would Alabama make the playoffs if they beat Vanderbilt? Yes. You wouldn't be hearing about Alabama being left out. If it was like any other 9-3 team in all of college football, that's not a blue blood in all of college football. It would go away like a fart in the wind.
So here's the thing, too, Jackson. This is how it all could be avoided, right? If Alabama just beats Vandy or beats Oklahoma, they're in. No questions asked. I don't think anyone would bat an eye. And even Jason O says a 10-2 Bama gets in, no question. Exactly. And here's the thing, too. I want to put this into perspective. I've seen a lot of Bama fans today, Jackson, and over the past 24 hours saying, we beat Georgia. What was the point of playing that game if we don't get into playoffs? We beat the eventual SEC champs. And I'm sitting here thinking, really? This is what we're doing now? You play the games for a reason. Because, yes, I get it. You beat the SEC champs. Good job. But guess what? You can't be doing Texas A&M and following it up with 2 bad losses. And then, like we talked about before we came on air, Jackson, how people are saying, why is SMU getting everything they want? They're not that good. They don't have any quality wins. Well, here's the thing, Alabama fans, spoiler alert, SMU doesn't have any bad losses on their resume. They have 2 of the better losses in the country. The BYU SMU game, Jackson references it all the time. One of the most underrated games in the entire country that no one watched. Or very few watched. Yes, BYU SMU. And of course, the walk-off against Clemson this past Saturday. I would much rather have 2 top 20 losses than the two losses Alabama took to Vandy and Oklahoma. I mean,
SMU's wins were not even impressed. They don't have that many impressive wins. Their win against Duke's the best one they got. But that's not really anything to brag about. But it's like, can't be putting a 9-3 team in the 12-team playoff unless there's not enough room for any more 2-loss teams.
And AK says both Vandy and OU were tougher than any team SMU played. You can make an argument for a couple teams. Like Louisville, I think you can make a case For Louisville, TCU, they got better down the stretch. It's all about at the time when SMU played them, these teams weren't, and I get it. It's because they're the SEC. But if you look at it with Duke, Louisville, TCU, you can make an argument they're on par with those two, in my opinion. I could be wrong. Jackson, what do you think? Do you think SMU's 3 best wins are is equal to your all's 2 losses?
It's a good question. Because, I mean, do I think Vanderbilt and Oklahoma could beat those teams? Like, Oklahoma, not like Vanderbilt, yeah. I mean, but you can't go by the hypotheticals sometimes. You got to go by what is and what isn't. You can't go by what you want and how you feel. You got to go by what is and what isn't right in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Well, and here's the thing, too. And Doc P, for example, says Ole Miss and South Carolina would also boat race SMU. I don't necessarily think so. I mean, Jackson, is SMU that much worse than the SEC teams that were in that cluster? Are they that much worse?
If they did play South Carolina, they wouldn't do so well. If they played Ole Miss, it'd be a disaster for them. But we will find out what happens when they play Penn State.
I'll say this, Jackson. Not that this will change anybody's perception, but if SMU beats Penn State, which we won't make any predictions now, but if they beat them, would that kind of put to rest the SMU? Would it put to rest a lot of this argument if they beat Penn State?
Oh yeah.
And Jason O says losing to tough teams isn't the same as a win. You deserve credit for playing a tough team only when you beat them. That's one way to look at it. Do you agree with that philosophy, Jackson?
That's a good case. You deserve credit for playing a tough team only when you beat them. Yeah, I can see that.
And that's the thing too. And Jason O says Ole Miss and South Carolina should have boat raced more teams on their schedule so they could have made the playoffs. The thing with South Carolina is
Ole Miss should have a tougher non-con schedule, to be honest.
I was about to say, I was waiting on Jackson to say that because I think you said that from the beginning. You were like, if Ole Miss had played at least one more Power 4 team other than a crappy Wake Forest team, the committee might have been like, okay, let's see. And then the Georgia win. But South Carolina, they kind of got screwed because if you think about it, if that flag LSU gets picked up, South Carolina's 10-2, and it'd be South Carolina instead of Alabama. But then people would be saying then the head-to-head. You notice, Jackson, how this all comes back around somehow? Like it's all just a big cluster mess. Like, and Dave E says one more year of this, and then we will see a 14-team playoff with other changes.
Oh yeah, and then we're gonna see number 15 get upset and have the hissy fit, or
yeah.
So I think we should just stuck with either 4 teams or just go to 8, or just gone to 8 teams, or just pretty much go 16. I don't want to go 64. 16 is as far as I will go.
Like, what are we trying to do? Make this March Madness? And Dave Linsky asks, SMU or Indiana, who would win? Here's my thing. If it's a neutral site, Probably pick SMU.
SM who?
Not by much. SMU. I would say this: if it's a neutral site, I would take SMU by a field goal.
I'm gonna go Indiana.
And Dave says making it even 16. Agreed. I mean, we could go that route, couldn't we, Jackson?
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, make it 16.
true.
Eh,
But we've done a lot. We've done a lot of talking about Alabama and SMU, but we have not talked about the rest of the playoff field, have we?
yes, yes. It might be good to show the people the entire bracket. Where
Here
are
we
our
go.
manners? Our manners are not very good tonight.
Well, mine certainly haven't been. Austin's got better manners than I do.
Well, not after the Cowboys lost, but they don't want to hear that. They're not here for that.
Oh man! But
yeah,
we got
go ahead.
we got the Clemson Texas matchup. That's going to be on December 21st on TNT and HBO Max. And they're going to play the winner. The winner's going to play Arizona State in the Peach Bowl. Now that's going to be the first meeting between these two schools.
Mm-hmm.
What's your early take on this game so far? How you feeling about it?
So, won't give any predictions. We'll save that for when we do our prediction show next
Yep.
week. Spoiler alert. I'll just say this. I think, Jackson, I remember when we had that conversation Saturday, would Clemson end up getting one of the buys? The committee did the right thing. Both Boise, Arizona State got the buys. All's good. Everyone's happy, right? No one's upset. No one threw the baby out with the bathwater. Everyone's good. Look, here's my early thing. Quinn Ewers, if he's healthy and going to play right, I could very much see Texas winning this game, and especially at home.
I love what Dave is saying. I predict the Orange will win this game.
That's a good, Dave. That's a good prediction. You might want to bet the farm on it. You'll definitely keep your farm.
Agreed. And it would have been the first time
it could have
since
been.
1995 that would have happened. No. Yeah, that's right. Probably would have been the first time since 1995 that's happened. Let me double check.
Here's the thing.
Yep, 1995,
Well,
September 30th.
Here's what I'll say. If Quinn Ewers is healthy and right, I think Texas is arguably one of the better teams in the country. I think they could go toe-to-toe with anybody. But Ewers is the key. He's been off lately. And Jackson, I know you've been a big supporter of Steve Sarkisian in Texas.
Uh-huh.
Jackson, do you think Texas, Jackson, are you beginning to have any doubts about them?
Yeah.
Or
That'll
are you
be
still
fine.
riding the Texas train?
Still riding that test train. I mean, hell, look at that lineup. Look at that lineup they're gonna have.
Oh yeah, I feel like here's the thing: Texas got one of the easier side of the brackets. Like if they beat Clemson and Arizona State, I mean, not that they're pushovers, but it's not the most daunting. They didn't get Oregon's bracket, and Jackson. That's one of the things people were really upset about. Did you hear how people were upset the fact that Oregon has to play possibly Ohio State and then play Texas to get to the national championship game, and people are like, Oregon's the 1 seed. Shouldn't they get the easier path? Well, if you're as good as you say you are, prove it. Go out there and win the whole thing, I guess.
I personally don't care what seed my team is. I'm thinking to myself, I want to win them all. That's just me.
Here's the thing, Jackson. I won't put this out here. We're in the playoffs, the 12-team playoffs. All these teams, they're good. They're very good. It's not one of those where they're weak. Boise, they could beat anybody in this bracket. I'm going to say that right now because you don't get this far without 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 winning and proving your worth. So if Boise upsets somebody, I wouldn't be shocked because Ashley Genty's just that darn good. I think, and I think honestly, Jackson, I think this is good for the sport. I don't know about you, but I can't wait for this to start.
I like seeing Texas Clemson playing each other. I think that's going to be pretty cool seeing that matchup. It's like, oh, wow, these two schools have never played each other. That's kind of scary.
Mm-hmm. And I'll say this,
I bet,
Jackson.
I
I know
bet our
everyone's
buddies
ready.
Jordan. I bet our buddies Jordan Bowman, Tiger Paul Craven, and Matthew Miller are going to be cooking up a crossover for sure. No,
I'll say this.
I'm not, but I appreciate it though. I mean, he's a pretty cool dude.
I'll say this, Jackson. I've seen this thrown around, and I want to put this out here. Never count Dabo out. Because
No.
just when you think you've left Clemson for dead, he always comes back to bite you in the rear. So, so I'm not going to put anything past Clemson. They could win this game, especially if they come to play. And I know people have said when Clemson plays somebody with a pulse, they don't look too high. Well, that's true. But you saw how they performed against SMU. So we'll have to see.
And we got the Tennessee Volunteers and the Ohio State Buckeyes in their second ever meeting in school history. The first ever meeting was in the 1996 Citrus Bowl. So, what is your take on Tennessee, Ohio State there, good buddy? The winner of this game, of course, playing the Oregon Ducks. This is going to be a fun one.
I'll say this. Tennessee's defense, Jackson, Tennessee's defense deserves a whole lot of credit for their success this year. I want to put this in proper perspective. Tennessee, pardon me. Tennessee's defense has given up one 20-point game this year. Once. Not many schools have done that throughout history. The only team that they gave up 20 points to was when they lost to Georgia. Every other team has been 19 or below. Even when they lost to Arkansas, it was only 19-14. And I personally think Tennessee's defense, I think, could keep them in this game because Ohio State, I think Michigan Jackson gave all the teams that are in this field a blueprint on how you beat this Ohio State team. Make it a sludge fest, grimy grit, powerhouse type of game. And I kind of think Tennessee's going to watch a lot of that film and be like, okay, this is what Michigan did. They did this, and it got them flustered. And Tennessee's got the star power. They've got some studs on that front line, on that front seven. I've seen even a couple go in the top 20. It's just the offense for Tennessee that scares me. Is if Nico Amalivo and this Tennessee offense can put a consistent game together, like 1-2 says, Tennessee will win it all. I really think that can happen. Like, not even joking with you, not even being sarcastic. I don't know if 1-2's being sarcastic, but Tennessee can win it all. They've got the skills to do it. And Doc P says, plus they deleted O-line for Ohio State. Yeah, that's another depleted. Yes.
Yeah, Ohio State. That's going to be the question there. Is Ryan Day fired if the Buckeyes lose?
I don't know. There's some people that seem to think no, because as you say, Jackson, who are you going to find better? And then there's some that are saying, yes, you've lost to Michigan 4 straight times. They wanted him out of town yesterday.
Maybe it could be like where Georgia when they fired Mark Richt. They took quite a chance, right? And then they
Mm-hmm.
got Kirby Smart. Things been working out for him ever since. Maybe we see something like that for the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Mm-hmm. And Dave Linsky says it's all about the Ohio State defense. Also, the only thing I could stop Ohio State, only thing that I could stop Ohio State's offense is the win. Yeah, yeah, this is going to be a defensive game. Don't be surprised if this is like a 17-10 type game because both defenses are tremendous. So don't be surprised.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing what Tennessee, Ohio State brings out. It's going to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, we got a question. What is more likely to happen? Clemson beats Texas or SMU beats Penn State? Either one of those could happen.
I'll say this. I would probably, if I was a betting man, I'd probably bet on SMU over Penn State because Penn State in big games tend to go awry.
They
I
choked
know
their
it's in Happy
chicken.
Valley, but that's one way to put it, Jackson. That's one way to put it, but I would probably bet that before I would Clemson over Texas. Now, if this was Trevor Lawrence Clemson, yeah. And Clint Moses says, "Who hires Ryan Day?"
Mm.
Oh, you bet. There'd be multiple candidates lining up at his front door.
Mhm.
Take your pick.
Oh, there's a lot of them for sure.
And Doc P says the Bears. And Girth Brooks says I can see Ryan Day to Bama.
The way the Bears are going, it's a disaster for them. So it's we'll wait and see what happens. Now that they should. Anyway, we got SMU Penn State on December 21st on 11 a.m. on TNT. This is going to be a very interesting one. Can SMU win the big one? Are they a fluke? Are they not a fluke? Can they win the big one? Can Penn State win the big one? This is going to be a game to watch for.
Here's the thing, Jackson. You know, we'll like I said, we'll break these down more in depth. But if Penn State, if they just don't make mistakes like they did against Oregon, I feel like they can win a playoff game. But like I keep saying, James Franklin in big time games, his teams always come up just a wee bit short. And that's I may be playing my cards on who I might be picking, but I feel like this game might be a whole lot closer than a lot of people think. Whatever the spread is, I would take SMU to cover. I feel like
Yeah.
it's going to be one of them games.
I'll be going Penn State, but if it were
Jackson,
today,
there's no spoilers. You got to make them want to come back for more. Goodness, Jackson.
I said if it were today, I didn't say like next Saturday. I believe they're gonna win. I didn't say what I believe. It's all good. Wrong show, but in all seriousness,
Wrong
though,
show.
Michael Genetti is done with his first year. He'll be back in his second year at Merrimack, so they're good to go there.
Clint Moses says both schools have an odd past. I'm guessing nobody wanted to play either school, so they pinned them first season. And Clint Moses brings up a good point. It's Penn State at noon, not a night game. That can make all the difference in the world too. Because if it was a whiteout, I'll say this: I would pick Penn State in a whiteout. They're a hard team to beat at night, but at noon, ooh, you got me thinking. No spoilers though.
No worries there. No spoilers, no worries. Hmm.
And the
So,
winner gets Boise too. What a draw!
oh yeah, looks pretty good to me.
And Jason
In
says it's
in the
a white.
field.
It is a whiteout. It's just a new whiteout. That don't look as cool though. Go ahead. I apologize, Jackson. Bad manners.
Oh, you good, man. You got better manners than I do. Yeah, the winner of SMU Penn State will be playing in the Fiesta Bowl. Uh, 1-2 says, who will Oregon lose to? They might face Tennessee, Ohio State on neutral field, a hot Arizona State team in Georgia. Ouch. Now, I think Oregon, they'll be okay.
I'll say this to this question. I won't spoil it, but Oregon's going to be a lot of people's pick to win the Natty in a lot of people's books. And here's the thing: if anybody's gonna beat Oregon, I could see Ohio State being the one, or Arizona State, because Kenny Dillingham does know Dan Lanning pretty well. I could see an Arizona State win. I could, and it would not surprise me because he knows what Dan wants to do before Dan does it. And does Dan Lanning screw it up by calling a fake punt from their own 20-yard line? I'm just waiting for that to happen.
Oh, yeah.
But go ahead, Jackson. Go ahead.
Well, we got the next one, Notre Dame and Indiana. Last time these two played each other was in 1991. The all-time series lead is 23-5-1. Notre Dame leads the series. The last time Indiana beat Notre Dame was in 1950. But the last time they beat Notre Dame in South Bend was in 1901. 1901.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think our
Yes.
great-great-grandparents existed by that time.
Mm-hmm. And the winner of this will play Georgia. And Doc P says, any update on Beck? Yes, I think he's out for the foreseeable future.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that was the reports, correct? Jackson,
Correct.
I think they said he's done at least possibly for the playoffs.
Oh, yeah. He's out.
Oh, he's
1-2
done.
says
Okay.
Indiana Notre Dame seems like the least interesting playoff game to me. It's just like meh. Keep Chopping says Notre Dame can't dodge Indiana anymore. Clint Moses says college football playoff pit, great home sites. Well, I mean, this
Yes.
is one Notre Dame home game that's not going to be on NBC.
Yes. And here's the thing, too, Jackson. I want to bring this up. What I love about this, Jackson, and I know people are upset about the buys and everything and all that. Look at what the home sites we're going to get to see be a playoff atmosphere. Texas,
Yeah.
Notre Dame, Penn State. These are all going to be playoff atmospheres. These games are going to have meaning to them. The fans aren't just going to be there to be, oh, we won. Good. Yay. Now it's win or go home. It's all or nothing. You win or your season's done. Is Notre Dame versus Indiana the first in-state matchup in the playoff era?
Yes.
I think so, isn't it, Jackson?
Because you got, yeah, there's not really that many in-state opponents playing each other in the playoffs in the history of it. There's been teams that have played each other from the same region or later joined the same conference, but that's it, really.
1-2 says, how much does Notre Dame's home playoff game irk Brian Kelly right now? Do you know he'll be seething at the screen while crying on his couch? Poor Brian Kelly. Why is he catching strays, Jackson? That poor man didn't do nothing.
He can't win the big one in Notre Dame. and you can't win the big one anywhere. And we got a yo from Traveling Fools. How you doing tonight? We thank you for tuning in, good buddy.
Yes, but I mean, Jackson, we see the playoff bracket, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll say this, Jackson. Going forward, do you think the playoffs will always be this? Like, even in terms of how many conferences, how many, or do you think there'll be some years where the SEC and Big Ten just take it over?
I think honestly, the SEC Big Ten takeover that's kind of shut down for now. Because I think
Okay.
some people have kind of realized it's a little messed up. So they're kind of shutting that off for another few years or so. I could be wrong.
Okay. Well, because the reason why I brought that up is because we've had people, especially on the Voice of College Football, Mark Rogers call in, and they've said, hey, the SEC could get 7 teams in, and not that couldn't have happened, but you got to think 7's a lot. At the beginning of the year, Jackson, I think I said I had 4 SEC teams in. I think I said Bama, Georgia,
I thought it'd be
Texas,
4.
and I think
Oh yeah, like the
and
usual
Ole Miss.
I think you had LSU as one of them.
Yeah, I think I did too. So it might have been 5, but it was 4 or 5. It was in that region. I didn't have no 7 or 8 like some people. Like some people said they get 7 in, 7, 8, and I'm just like, how in the world can that even happen?
Oh man, it was so funny that because I thought it was going to be 4 SEC teams and 4 Big Ten teams. That's literally what I thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
But here's the thing.
Yep, that's the usual suspect. He's funny, dude. Though, like, love hearing his call-in takes. Like, it's just kind of like it's the perfect entertainment. Like when you're looking for some popcorn, Coca-Cola, or something like that. Watch a little bit of DeReal calling in on the Voice of College Football, giving some of his dates where he's like, Alabama, Alabama 8-4. They're just they would beat a 12-0 team. Like that's how it is. I mean, 8-4.
Oh, oh Jesus! I needed that laugh. That. I'm sorry, Jackson, but that's funny.
We're gonna make him the most famous man yet. Like I'm surprised he hasn't called in on the Fine Ball show. Like he would do great at it, honestly. And I'll tell him straight up, like next time he calls in, or if he ever calls in on here, I'll tell him like you should definitely call in on the Paul Feinbaum show because like you're funny as hell, man. Like I don't. It's like it's naturally funny. Like it's like people need some entertainment in their lives, and it's like.
Well, and Jason O brings up an interesting point. He said the committee just showed us that they value records, number of wins over conference affiliations. Now, Jackson, let me ask you something. And I want to bring this to the forefront because Kurt Herbstreit, right? You know how Pat McAfee threw his little jab at him saying, what do you think, Kurt? What do you think about this SMU Alabama situation? And he kind of does. I think both SMU and Alabama should be in. I want no more death threats. I want no more of this. Do you think, Jackson, the FSU getting screwed over kind of made the committee members realize, okay, people are getting upset. We need to make sure.
Yeah.
We need to make sure this doesn't happen again because now it's causing us to lose money.
Yep.
Do you think that's maybe why? Like, let's put SMU in.
For those that watch like the Andy Griffith show, where Barney was like getting all mad at Gomer Pyle about parking in the wrong spot or whatever. But then, Barney was doing something he shouldn't have been doing. He didn't know it because it was the way he was turning his car. And Gomer Pyle was like, "Citizens arrest! Citizens arrest! Citizens arrest!" And then Andy goes over to see what the commotion's all about, and he's like, "Okay, Barney screwed up." And then he whispers to Barney, "Okay, Barn, I think this got a little out of hand, so write yourself a ticket, okay? Just write yourself a ticket." I think that's what was going on with the committee, where it's like they realized a lot of people would have rather seen SMU get in than Alabama because they were just kind of like, Barn, this getting a little out of hand. Let's we're gonna lose money if we put Alabama in. Okay, nobody wants a 9-3 Alabama team. Citizens, I love it.
They were like, "How can we create the worst playoff bracket possible? Mission accomplished." See, here's the thing: I don't think this playoff bracket's all that bad. Like, I know if you're an Alabama fan, you may be thinking this playoff bracket sucks. I don't think it's honestly that bad. Like, I honestly think this is one of the better playoff brackets that they could have made. Now, would Alabama, Penn State, and Happy Valley, would that have been awesome to see? Oh, heck yeah. I would sit my butt on the couch with the popcorn and nachos getting ready to watch that. Jalen Milroe, Drew Aller in a shootout. Oh, heck yeah. Count me in. Put it on any time. You can put it at 6 in the morning. I'll make sure I'm there. I know Jackson would. Ain't that right, good buddy?
Oh, yeah. I will. And we got the call-in link for those who want to chime in, give us their takes on the Selection Sunday and the playoff field and so much more.
1-2 says, "I hate this playoff bracket."
Roll.
I don't know if you're being serious. I don't know if he's being serious or not, but if he is, you're more than welcome to call in and tell us why you hate it. 1-2. We'd love to hear why.
There you
Are
go.
you a Bammer? A Bammer man or a Bammer woman? You know? And Hummus Hero says Alabama Penn State would have been a really fun game. I agree. I think most people would have watched it.
Oh yeah. There'd be a lot of oh yeah. Trojan Fight says, "I don't remember the exact details, but I thought Kirk Herbstreit and others were lobbying for the SEC for hours before the committee voted." Oh yeah.
They always do that. They've always done that. That's nothing new. Like, Jackson, they did that when it first started.
There we go. Roll Tide, Colonel Cadmium. I'm a Bammer
I didn't want to
as
say
well.
his name wrong. I just say Roll Tide because it's fun. I'm a Louisville guy.
There we go.
And 1-2 says, when you lose in the SEC, it's because everyone is so good. When you lose in another conference, all the teams stink, so you're awful as well. Always remember that. Here's my thing, Jackson. I get it. Like, some people, yes, do look at it this way. Let me ask you something, Jackson. Miami's 2 losses, right? We're to Georgia Tech and Syracuse. Let's compare them real fast. Let's do some comparisons. Let's have some fun. Let's compare Alabama, right? Since they're the talk of the town. Would you say, Jackson, who had the better losses, Miami or Alabama? I want to put this theory to the test. In your opinion, and chat, get in on this with us. Who had the better losses? What do you think, Jackson? I'll let you go first.
9-3. You lost a 9-3 Syracuse team. You lost to a Georgia Tech team that took Georgia to 8 overtimes. I would say those are better losses. I mean, like, the Tennessee loss outweighs those two combined, yes. But It's better than losing to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma.
So, and I want to put this in perspective. This is an Alabama fan saying that Miami's losses look better on paper than yours. I just want to make sure we're hearing this right.
But I do agree on the wins being way better than Miami's, so there's that.
And Doc B says that too. And here's the thing. I want to put this out here before anybody crucifies me or calls me nuts or crazy. Alabama's got one of the best wins in the country over Georgia. Hands down, there's no debate, no argument on that. So I don't want anybody to take that out of context. I was just talking about 1-2's point about how if you're in the SEC, your losses are better than any others. And Miami was a good example. We could use Alabama against SMU's losses. We could use Alabama against, I'm trying to think of another non-SEC team you compare them against. That was right there. Alabama, Arizona State. I mean,
Arizona State's losses were pretty pitiful. Texas Tech, that's a
okay,
bad.
there.
Yeah, Cincinnati, they're going to be a fate worse than hell with Scott Satterfield.
Yeah, that's true.
The moment I felt it was over for us when we heard Sean McDonough and Dabo Swinney calling for SMU to get in. That was when I felt Alabama getting in was over. And we got our friend Minnesota Dave coming on in to give his take on the CFP selection show and giving out his reactions at the playoff field. How you doing tonight, good buddy?
I'm doing great, guys. How's everybody in the Southland?
We're doing pretty good, but when you say, but if you ever say bless your heart to someone, if someone ever says that to you,
That means fuck you.
yeah, yep. There you go. So it's like, oh my god, like everybody where I'm at, they're kind of in the 5 stages of grief at the moment.
Yeah. I can see that.
Oh yeah, there's like, oh, they're at the bargaining phase right now.
Yeah. I think the committee missed out on maybe a good game against Texas and SMU.
Yeah, it would have been the first time since 1995 since Texas and SMU have played each other. So that would have been cool.
Yeah, since the conference was gone, the Southwest Conference.
Yep. How you feeling about the whole playoff field as a whole? Like, which game are you looking forward to most?
I think Notre Dame, Indiana is going to be the game I'm looking for the most. I'm a casual Irish fan. I wouldn't say I'm an overly huge Irish fan. When they're good, I'm really into them. When they're bad, I'm just like I give or take, you know. I'm not. It's mostly because of why my dad's uncle was a huge Irish fan, and everybody from Michigan was on my dad's side is from Michigan. They're all huge Michigan State fans. And I got into Notre Dame because, the Gophers had trouble beating Michigan, still have trouble to this day beating Michigan. And I just always hated, that they would always beat us. So I cheered for Notre Dame to beat Michigan. You know, that's that's my interest in Notre Dame. But I think all the games are great. I'm surprised that Arizona State got a bye. I'm surprised that Boise State got a bye.
Well, I want to say this real quick, Dave. The committee really had no choice in the matter because, Clemson was the only other challenge, and people done picked apart the Clemson argument. Even Saturday when I brought that up, people picked that apart and said Clemson should be the 12. That's why those two made sense.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, I totally get it. It's just more surprising to me. You know, all I heard about is the Big 12 is being bad. It's bad. And then Arizona gets a bye. All I heard about is the PF5 is always going to get the 12 seed. Well, then Boise State gets a bye. You know, it's it it's just weird with me. It's just I feel that they should stop doing these only conference championships get automatic buys type things and start doing basically nobody gets a bye. It goes by ranking. If you're the number one team, you get the number one spot. If you're the number two team, you get the number two spot. If you're the number three team, you get the number three spot. And if you're number four team, you get the number four spot. You know,
I
it,
like I want to push back on that just a little bit, Dave, because in my opinion, it makes the conference championship all that more valuable. Like it it's already valuable in that you're the best, you're considered the best in your conference by winning it, but now you get a little extra motivation because if you win your conference, not only are you could say you're the best of your conference, but you've got a guaranteed playoff spot waiting on you. And you don't have to worry, you don't have to do nothing. Like Boise, they won the Mountain West and they're like, we can sit back and relax. Our ticket's punched.
yeah, but when you're beating up on Little Sisters of the Poor, and I feel bad for teams like Tennessee. I feel bad for teams like Ohio State. That do play stronger in stronger conferences and don't get that bye. Texas is another one. It just doesn't make that much sense to me. I mean, Boise should just be happy to be in the playoffs, in my opinion.
And Jason O says, why give buys to losers? Buys should only go to conference winners. I'm more on that side. I see your point, Dave, because you make a fantastic point that if you play a P4 schedule, it's you could see why the arguments would come in though. But let's not take this out of context. I think winning your conference is one of the hardest things you'll do all year. I don't care how good or bad your conference is. You have to play the best opponent on your schedule. Mark said it best. Whoever you play in the conference championship game is probably the best opponent, second best opponent in your conference. You beat them, that solidifies you as the best.
Okay, can I ask you a question? Do you think 2016 when PJ's Flex Western Michigan team went undefeated, do you think that they should get a bye?
Here's the thing.
They were the
I'll
best
say this.
P5 team at the time.
Here's the thing. It all depends on two. And here's the thing. The Boise State argument with that is they lost Oregon, right? I think that's what helped them get the bye. If they hadn't played Oregon, they probably wouldn't have gotten the bye. I think that's what's really helping their case, like people have said, having that good loss to Oregon. If they had just played all Sisters of the Poor, they would have been the 12th seed, no arguments, and Clemson would have gotten that bye.
Yeah,
but if Western
this makes my case more for like 16 teams. No one gets a bye. Everyone gets a home game, one home game, and then they go to the bowl games. The winners go to the bowl games.
Well, and that's the thing too. And Jason O says, feel bad for Texas. Give them a cup of warm cocoa if you feel so bad for them. Georgia earned the SEC's bye. No one else deserves it. And here's the thing. I agree with Jason. I see your point too. I'm more leaning with if you won like Georgia, they won the SEC's bye. They won it. flat out, fair and square. The bye's theirs to have. In Texas, they should have played better. That's where I'm at. It's like with the whole bowl situation about the APR and stuff. That's why people got so upset last year when Minnesota made it, because y'all didn't play that well throughout the year because your APR was so good. You all got the bowl spot because there wasn't enough. It's
Yeah,
kind of the same
I mean,
principle.
and I totally agree with that. And the only reason why that happened is the Army Navy game was played late, and the bowl committee said, "Well, the bowl committee basically says it's too late to put in Army Navy, no matter what happens." So the Army Navy gets in position, basically they're playing an almost an exhibition game every year to like they're not playing a regular season game. Almost, it's because they played that game so late, and because of that, the winner of that game last year would have gone to a bowl game because would have been a 6-6 team. They should have been playing, and I agree with you, they should have been playing in the don't give a shit Detroit Bowl.
And Trojan Fight says, example, if you lose a game, you don't make the conference championship game, but are guaranteed a playoff spot. Some teams might choose that path. What do you think about that? That's kind of interesting. The teams might be like, we could throw this game and we still got a playoff spot waiting on us. Do you think that would happen though? Hurt the integrity of the game? Do you think they would have enough pride to be like, let's try to win this, even if the committee's almost said, even if you lose, guess what? You might have a playoff spot still waiting on you. You think the integrity would still be there? I think what he's getting at.
Well, the way I saw it as is basically I went into watching the ACC conference championship thinking that if SMU ends up losing this, it would have to be a horrible loss for them not to be in. I mean, they like basically 14 points plus loss against Clemson for them not to be in. But they ended up coming back, and Clemson, got a great run on a kickoff and got one good play on a pass, and then kicked the game-winning field goal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it happened. That's when I basically said, that's what I thought to myself. SMU is still now going to be still in the playoffs, even though they lost. They still played a good game. If it was a blowout, Bama would be in the college football playoffs right now, and SMU would be going home because the ACC is just not that good, and the teams they played were just not that good in comparison to the SEC.
Mm-hmm. But that's the thing too, though. I think you also have to look at it as as SMU has two better wins than Alabama. Like they went 11-2, Bama went 9-3. Now people may argue to the moon saying it's the ACC compared to the SEC. I understand that, but they look more impressive throughout the year than Alabama has. They put more of a consistent stretch together, and and I'm and they even said that Ward Manuel even said he thought SMU put together a pretty good impressive stretch after the close win against Louisville, whereas Alabama was up and down, up and down, up and down. Even if the evidence points to Alabama's got the best win in the country and best win in the country, but he said the play on the field though SMU has been more consistent, even if they've beaten all crappy cupcake teams within the
Well,
ACC.
yeah,
I think.
and I think that was the case. I mean, they did go undefeated in their conference. Their only loss was outside of the Clemson conference championship loss was to Brigham Young, and that's another one. I mean, how good is Brigham Young? Could we even talk about them? Not really, because they're in the Big 12, and the Big 12 was not all that good.
Mm-hmm. And the thing with Big 12 is it's more likely, Dave and Jackson, and I've even told this to Jackson multiple times, and he's dreading it. But one of these years, we're going to have a 9-3 Big 12 team make the playoffs. It's coming. Get ready for it.
You think people? You think some people are pissed now? Wait until you see that happen.
Yeah,
hmm
yeah.
It's gonna
It's
it's gonna happen because the Big 12 just beats up on one another.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if an 8-4 Big 12 team got one of the buys because that's just the crazy thing about it is they could lose all three of their non-cons, but then run the table in the Big 12 and ta-da, there you go. And then people are going to be, and people have already said they've already been fearing for that scenario. So I even told Jackson that, and Jackson's like, I hope that never happens, but it's going to.
Oh yeah. Well,
yeah.
Dave, how you feel? Who you think can win it all this year, Dave?
You know what? I'll be honest with you. I said it before the last time I was on the show. All 12 teams have a very good chance because all 12 teams have horrible flaws. They're not perfect. This is, normally when we go into like these 4 team playoffs, there was maybe, a little flaw here, a little flaw there. A lot of them are like, are they great at defense and are not all that great at offense, or they have a horrible special teams, you know, or they have maybe 2 or 3 key players, but if you stop 2 or 3 of those key players, they have no chance to win. That's just the way I feel. But going in here, I just think that basically I feel bad for their path because they're the number 1 seed is Oregon. Oregon just looks like more of a complete team.
hmm Even Oregon, they had their slip ups this year. I mean, that Wisconsin game slips right to mind.
Oh,
That's the first one.
that would have been
And,
hilarious if
and
the Badgers beat them and still lost to their rivals.
they would have made you all look really good too. But I think a
Oh
lot of it
yeah,
was, and even Ben said it on the Oregon show. They had played 8 straight weeks and they were just ready to get to that bye week. So they kind of half hee haw hummed it because they were like, oh, it's Wisconsin. Wisconsin has no offense. And then it turned out Wisconsin's defense was like, okay, we'll have to try
and,
to win it instead.
and what also hurts a lot of those teams from like the West Coast when they came into the Big Ten games is you're just getting a jet lag and your freaking time is all screwed up. I can see that
Yeah.
being a big problem for a lot of those teams. A lot of these teams, I mean, other than Oregon, all the other teams did not like impress. I mean, Washington did not impress me at all. They're kind of on a rebuilding year like Michigan was. And I would say, well, USC, which I thought would be a lot better, and they were not. Who's that guy, that Trojan guy that keeps talking about they're not used to the idea that holding doesn't get called all that much in the Big Ten. Well, you got to adapt. You got to adapt.
On USC, on where exactly, Meso, Dave?
Oh, the USC guy that's on that calls in
Mhm.
a couple of times at on the after hour shows.
Oh
And
yeah,
and I think he has his own show too. I think he has like
yeah.
Trojans.
Conquest call-in show. Tim Prangley.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, in the
he
Big Ten, they let you get away with it. They
you know,
let you
they,
get away with
yeah.
that a lot.
Unless it's obvious holding, it's just
It's
they're
almost
not
like
gonna
a play
call.
on.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. It's you have to really hold on to somebody to get the holding call in the Big Ten. But
hmm
makes me wonder how bad the Pac 12 was for this whole entire thing. How much holding calls get called in the Pac 12 because like, 'cause I'm one of those people that believes the idea that, you know, if you want to, you can call holding almost in every play. If you really want to look for
That's
it by the letter
true.
of the law. By the letter of the law, you can call holding almost in every play. Someone is manhandling somebody, on the offense or defensive line.
I,
But you want to, if you wanted to say something.
I was just gonna say real fast. I mean, it's one of them, you know, and we've got a couple people in the chat saying, "Get better, USC. Stop whining." I'll say
Oh
this.
Lord.
There, I'll say this. I I don't have anything against USC. I don't have anything against anybody, but there comes a point when you join a certain conference, you know what you're getting yourself in for. The Big Ten, you ought to know that's a more physical conference. They're going to let more things go. Whereas you come to the ACC or Big 12, they're going to be a little more prissy about it. They're going to call a lot more. And the defense, and I'll say this, the defenses in those conferences, well, not the Big 12, but the ACC, the defenses are pretty doggone good. Like, you can make an argument we have one of the better defenses across the board in our conferences, but that's another discussion for another day. But yeah, to your point though, Dave, sometimes it's just like, get better, don't be a wuss,
Okay.
Oh
take a
yeah,
hit.
exactly.
Well, all
You know.
righty. Oh,
All
go
right,
ahead.
guys. I'll talk to you guys later.
All righty, man. You stay safe, stay warm. We'll be seeing you later, Dave.
All right. Talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye bye. And we got Sean Garner on the line. How you doing tonight, good buddy?
I'm doing all right. All right. Still pissed over the playoff selection, but it's what it is.
Why are you upset? Okay, I know, very rude of me, but why are you upset, Sean? You got a home game.
Okay. We're ranked behind a team we beat on the road and who has no real
My bad.
quality wins. A team that lost to Northern Illinois. I mean, like it was just okay. Okay. So the path for Ohio State, if everything kind of works out to chalk, is to go through Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, and Georgia. I mean, that's potentially the path for them. If you look at this bracket, I mean, like the top half is so much tougher than the bottom half, and that's just a result of both a bad setup, bad design with the system to begin with, and also just really, really inexplicable seeding by the playoff committee. I don't see any justification on earth that puts Penn State out of Ohio State, and I don't see any justification to have Notre Dame as high as they are. Notre Dame and SMU have similar. Actually, SMU has a better resume than Notre Dame. Similar strengths of schedule. SMU had to play an extra game, so they took an extra loss, and that was in overtime. And I mean, SMU lost to a good team.
Yeah.
Notre Dame lost. Notre Dame lost to
the-
an absolute garbage. Lost to a MAC team that went 500 in conference play.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous that they just snuck under the radar the entire time, and no one realizing that their resume was garbage. It was awful. So both Ohio State and Tennessee, like, much better resumes than Notre Dame. Notre Dame for sure, and Ohio State has every edge over Penn State imaginable. And it's not even like Penn State dominated outside of the 2 games they lost. Like they had close games against. They had very, very, very close games against Michigan level teams. So they went to overtime with USC, beat Minnesota by 1. Both teams Michigan beat. Ohio State loses a really close game against Michigan. odd game.
Mm-hmm.
But Ohio State
Here-
went on the road and was clearly the better team,
Mhm.
won the game. It's
Here,
a joke.
I want to bring this up, Sean. I think what helped Penn State is they had that extra data point. The fact that they played in a conference championship game, and the committee even said, and you even said out of your own mouth, that the committee wasn't going to punish the teams that were playing. So, is that maybe why?
Yeah. I mean, it's the only logical explanation that they just boxed themselves into a corner here. I mean, when you look at Ohio State had a better game against Oregon, which was on the road as well. I mean, Ohio State was just a better team from this season than Penn State was. They just were. They had and I know like Ohio State could have taken care of business. They could have beaten Michigan and they could have, but judge them based on what they did. I mean,
Well, Sean,
here's keep chopping, saying if Ohio State is the best, they have their chance to prove it. I mean, like that is true. But when you have to play much tougher competition the entire way, Penn State has to play 2 group of 5 teams basically to get to the
their non-conference schedule for next year. It's worse than this year's for Penn State.
Yeah,
I'll say this, Sean. You've gotten people fired up in the chat because
of course
people are saying Ohio State finished 4th in the Big Ten. 4th. Dave says
they beat 2 of the top 3. They beat 2 of the top 3 teams. I mean, they beat 2 of the top 3 teams. Lost to the number 1 team in the country on the road by 1, controversially too. There's no argument you can make to put Penn State ahead of Ohio State. There's just none.
Here's my thing. In Jackson, you may agree with my philosophy, and you too, Sean. If Ohio State's as good as you say they are, Sean, then they will have no problem running that gauntlet. And if they do that, then
I'm not saying they're that. I'm not saying they're that good. I think they could have been that good if they didn't have the injuries on the offensive line. Like I think that they are the best team with McLaughlin and Simmons healthy, and then Donovan Jackson able to play his natural position. Like I think this is the best team. Injuries happen, boo-hoo, right? But no, I mean, like with their current format, I mean, they can lose. They could definitely lose to Tennessee. They'll probably be underdogs against Oregon. But I mean, like it's just hard to beat 4 teams in a row of that quality. Penn State, the bottom half of that bracket, you've got Georgia with a backup quarterback. Carson Beck almost for sure is not going to be playing. And then you've got then you've got Boise State, SMU, Indiana, all on that bottom half. I mean, it's just it's absurdly weaker on the bottom half. I mean, I didn't expect it to be this lopsided. I didn't.
Here's what I want to say.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, Sean. If you're in the playoffs, you're legit in my opinion. Like even if like Boise, even if they don't win a game, they still make the playoffs. You still have to be some type of good to make the playoffs. I get where you're coming from. I understand that you're talking about, how the odds are kind of stacked against you. I understand that. But here's the thing, like people are mentioning, take care of business and we wouldn't have this issue.
Okay, but you could say the same thing to Penn State. You could say the same. Why is there a higher burden for Ohio State? Penn State and Notre Dame didn't take care of business.
Because you all put it on yourself. Because a lot of your fan base talks that talk.
Hey, listen. I want to separate this, like my fandom talk, which I'm out, and just like an objectively evaluating the decision making of the committee here. Like forget if it's Ohio State. Say it's Wisconsin. I would be making the same points if it was Wisconsin who did what Ohio State did this year, and they got put in this spot. I mean, someone said, "What terrible team did Penn State lose to?" I mean, calling Michigan terrible is probably an overstatement. I mean, they're 7-5. They weren't a good team. But I also say, what good teams did Penn State beat? Ohio State beat 2 teams in the playoff field. Penn State didn't beat anyone that sniffed the playoff field. Didn't beat anyone that could buy a ticket to get to the game. It's so, and plus they beat them in their place, outgained them by 150 yards. I just don't see how you can look at everything that was done this year and conclude that Penn State either had a better overall season than Ohio State or that they're a better team. Like I said too, Penn State had very, very narrow losses against USC. Probably should have lost that game against USC, and then a 1-point win against Minnesota. Both of those teams were teams that Michigan beat. So I mean, like they were on the razor's edge too. If they would have won both of those games by 30 points, it's a little bit of it helps their case a little bit. And Tennessee too. I think Ohio State and Tennessee had very similar resumes. Had very similar. Tennessee beat good teams, and they had to play a much tougher schedule than Penn State and Notre Dame did. Because they took one extra loss, they had much better wins than both of those teams. So,
I'll say this, Sean. Notre Dame's claim to fame is they beat Texas A&M first week of the season. Because I believe A&M finished ranked. I think.
Did they?
Did they finish ranked? I believe so. Yes. Yeah, I think they did finish.
I didn't check the very bottom of the rankings here.
But other than that, they've got wins over Louisville, USC teams that are I would say Louisville is a little better than USC, but the NIU loss, I understand where you're coming from, Sean. That's inexcusable. I don't care who you are.
That's a terrible team that they lost to.
Yes. Yes, you're Notre Dame. You shouldn't be losing that game. I completely agree with you. But the problem is, though, Sean, is they see, okay, Notre Dame's already in a pickle as we know it because they can't get a bye no matter how hard they try. They could schedule Ohio State, Georgia, Texas, and beat them all by 70+, and they still won't get a bye. So they're already in a pickle. So anything they do, they can't go any higher than 5.
Oh yeah, they can't. But that's beside the point. Like, yeah, they could play the toughest schedule in the country, beat everyone by 30, and they can't be higher than 5th. Like, that's a problem with the system too. But but I mean, like, well, you focus on what they did this year. Their best win was, like Louisville, Texas A&M, Army. They're all Army's probably not actually that good, but they're ranked whatever they're ranked, and that was their only loss on the season. But
oh boy,
I mean, like the whole point of this playoff committee is to evaluate the whole season, not be so reactive to one thing on the next. And because Ohio State lost the last week of the season, they get pushed beneath a team that lost. I mean, I don't know how anyone can look at this bracket, look at the top half, look at the bottom half, and say they did a good job here. This is not balanced at all. This is way out of whack. You shouldn't get a path to the Final Four that includes beating SMU and Boise State. That just should not be a reality.
Let me ask you something, Sean and Jackson. Let's say Penn State wins it all this year. They're the national champs. They're considered the best team. Does it matter how they got there?
I mean,
yes and no.
Not in the reality. They get the same banner, but you do evaluate it a little bit differently. Go ahead, Jackson. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's all right. I was saying yes and no. Because, no, it's going to be, they're national champions. Yes, because of the opponents that they got. SMU, Not a lot of people have
Mhm.
seen them. Boise State, not a lot of people have seen them. We don't know who Penn State's going to get if they were to play in the semifinals. Are they getting Indiana? Are they getting Notre Dame, Georgia? And then you got who's from the other side. You could be getting Oregon, Ohio State, Tennessee, Arizona State, Texas, or Clemson. It all depends
Mhm.
on who Penn State has in their path.
And the thing too is, I want to add to this. You could do it for a lot of sports. You could do it for the NBA. You could do it for the NFL. You could do it for college basketball. I look at it as if you win the whole thing, you're considered the best team. You're the top of the mountain in your sport. And I understand some people may look at it and say, yeah, Penn State got the luck of the draw. They didn't get a tough path like Ohio State, but they still had to win those games. Whether you agree or
They're still gonna have
disagree
to
with
be
who
good
they
teams,
play,
yeah.
they still had to. I mean, we're at the point now, like I said, Sean, the 12 teams in are good teams. But like Ohio State had to play the great teams, quote unquote great teams, whereas Penn State had to play the good to very good teams, say, in the bracket. I can understand where you're coming from on that. I can understand that.
No, but I'm saying you could just make this more balanced by just fixing the bracket a little bit, so you're not giving these absurd buys to teams like Arizona State. I mean, they are not one of the top 4 teams. They don't. Their resume is not even close to a top 4. What were they ranked? Like 11th or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Arizona
Their
State
resume wasn't.
they came out of nowhere. They were 15th on Saturday against Iowa State.
Yeah, but where did they fin? Where was the final, Paul?
Let's
see. Which one? The AP or the coaches?
The playoff poll. The playoff poll. Then did they release playoff rankings, right? Where were they in both of those polls, the AP and the coaches?
Let's see. Let's look at it, shall we? Here we go.
1-2 says the playoff bye rules were established before season began.
Yeah,
Everybody knew this.
of course they were.
I don't think you were, Sean. I don't think you were arguing against the buys, were you? You were arguing Ohio State and who they had to play.
Well, I definitely will argue. I said this from the beginning. The bye system is totally ridiculous. To give the 4 to conference champions. I mean, it just creates a bad bracket. It disincentivizes the wrong thing. Oregon fans should be pissed too. Oregon's going to have to play either Ohio State or Texas or Tennessee in the second round, and Penn State's going to have to play Boise State. Texas is going to have to play Arizona State. I mean, you're telling me like those teams don't have an easier path than the 1 seed or even the 2 seed? Like the 5 and the 6 seeds are the plum spots in this bracket. They're the spots you want to be at, and it should not be that way.
When I want to bring this up, Sean, what's the guarantee that Texas is going to beat Clemson, or that Texas is going to be the one?
There's no guarantees. We saw Northern Illinois. We saw Arkansas beat Tennessee. We saw. I mean, like there's no guarantee, but there's probability. There's likelihood of victories, and it's just
y'all could end up playing. Y'all could not to cut you off. Sorry about that. Y'all could end up playing SMU in the championship game, Sean. For all we know.
No. Like that is so unrealistic, though. Like I would give SMU a chance to beat Penn State. They definitely have a chance to win that game, and then we'd have an SMU Boise State.
Oh man!
Oh my lord!
Oh man!
Who had that on their bingo card at the beginning of the season?
SMU Boise State on New Year's Eve. That'd be a way to end 2024 right there.
That game will get the lowest. That will be the lowest viewed game in the history of the playoffs by several million viewers.
That's funny.
There's no one's going to pay attention
I'll
to
watch.
that. Oh yeah.
And 1-2 says, do you think that an easy path to a champion makes a better champion? I don't get it. Only the winner matters, and the winners will have a tough path no matter who it is. He's getting at the point, if you win the whole thing, it doesn't matter how you got there. You're a champion.
No, I mean, in reality, it's just much tougher to beat 4 elite teams than it is to maybe beat 1 or 2. I mean, like that it's just pure math, right? If you let's say Ohio State has like an 85% chance against SMU and Boise State.
Mm-hmm.
They've got like I don't know, like according to the ESPN simulators, they've got like something like a 60 to 65% chance of beating Tennessee. They're probably going to be in like the 40s against Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
It's just much harder when you have to go through. You know, it's compounding interest here, right? I mean, the harder your path is. I mean, the harder your path is. And I mean, it decreases the likelihood of you winning it all massively. I mean, it's an enormously different situation if Penn State had to go through Ohio State's slate, and Ohio State had. And my thought is, Penn State didn't deserve that spot. Ohio State should be ahead of Penn State. Notre Dame, Notre Dame should be like an 11 or 12 seed in this. And they're,
Here's my thing. Now we're at the point though, if like Jason O says, the bracket's fine, time to play the games. If Ohio State
the bracket's not fine. It's ridiculous. It's absurd the way it's set up. You've got maybe five. You've got probably like 4 of the 5 best teams in this bracket on one side of it.
I'll say this. Here's the thing, Sean. Ryan Day should be able to fire his guys up, right? He'd be like, you know what? It's us against the world. The committee don't like us. They want us to have this path, so be it. Let's go out there and beat everybody in front of us.
Of course he's got to do that. Yeah, that's not the problem. I'm not Ryan Day, so I can complain about this all I want.
There you go.
You can't tell me the paths like these are equivalent paths. Ohio State and Penn State, or Ohio State and Notre Dame. For all we know, Georgia's like one of the most up and down teams in the country too. So like they could lose to basically anybody on a given day. So
here's the thing, and I don't know if he's joking or not, but here's the thing, Sean. Let me ask you: if you're in the committee chair, if you're Ward Manuel, and you were putting this bracket together, how would you do it? What would your format be? What's the best format in your opinion?
Okay,
what format do you like? This is how.
Okay, I think you allow 5. I think you allow the 5 conference champions in. You put 7 at-large teams, and then you just put them on the bracket as they're ranked. That's it.
Okay.
That's absolutely as simple as it would be. What? So there have to be buys. There have to be buys in a 12-team playoff.
Okay.
No, but the buys would go to the top. The buys would go to the top 4 teams. They're not going to an Arizona State team that lost to Cincinnati and who else?
Texas. They lose Texas Tech.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Week 4.
Yeah, Texas Tech.
Yeah. I mean, like that's you lost to Texas Tech and Cincinnati, and now they have a bye. Over. And I mean, they've got some decent wins, but nothing amazing. Iowa State was their best win of the year by far.
But they won their conference, though. They won the crown.
They did. But like, do we have any doubt on earth that Texas or Ohio State or Penn State would have won that conference? I have none. They would have easily won that conference. All those teams, and all those teams had better seasons than Arizona State did. It's just too much of a reward to win a crappy conference and get a bye right into the quarters. And the teams that benefit from that are the top at large teams, the 5 and the 6 seeds. Like they're in a better spot than the 1 and the 2 seeds. That's wrong. That's not right.
Well, the thing is too, though, Sean. Like this year, the Big 12 champ went 10-2, right? 11-2, excuse me. That's passable. You're okay with that. What I think when the real talking point will come is when one of the 9-3, 8-4 sneak in there. That's when your gripe will really become.
But
This year, Arizona State
in those situations, they would most likely get the 12 spot. You know, if you sneak in with like a really, really sus resume and you win the title, like, and that probably will happen. But you know,
and Steve Moser says crappy conference.
Conference. Is this one of those SEC dipshit shows? Time for bed, I guess.
wait. I mean, like if you want to deny reality and you want to say that the ACC and the Big 12 are equivalent to the Big 10 and the SEC, then yeah, maybe you should go to bed because we're not going to ignore reality.
Like, who's he referring to as a dipshit? That's what I want to know because I don't think
he was referring to the show as a dipshit show.
Well,
yeah. So
and 1-2 says, "What is your evidence that the Big 12 is a crappy conference based on what games?" And then he says, "What is your evidence based on the cross?" He's. Yeah,
I mean, you want to be snarky and dismissive about the whole thing. Sure, I'm
not.
Tell us the cross conference games. Well, we don't get many cross conference games between these two teams, between these two conferences. But
I wouldn't try to sound snarky.
I mean, okay. How about this? How about this? Arizona State played by far the worst team in the SEC, by far.
Mississippi State, yeah,
and that game was a dogfight. that game went down to the wire.
Yeah,
like you can.
They got smacked off the face of the earth by Toledo the week after. So it's like that's really bad.
Yeah, I mean, you can filibuster this all you want. Like. Any rational, realistic person knows there's a reason why the good teams from the Big 10, the Big 12, the power programs left the Big 12 and went to the SEC. And the Big 12 has survived by absorbing teams from lower conferences. Like it's disingenuous to even presume, to even speculate on this. How do we know the SEC, the Big 12 is weaker than the SEC and the Big 10? I mean, we do. Anyone that tries to make an argument that they're on the same level is being coy. They're being shifty with you. We all know that the SEC and the Big 10 are the two best conferences. It's not close. And they're the best conferences by a wide margin.
So, Sean,
I want to say this, Sean.
Go ahead,
real quick, Jackson. To his point. So, Sean, there's a great thread how Lane Kiffman says all this about the SEC. You look at the SEC teams that Ole Miss lost to, and there's a good graphic of how they lost to Kentucky and Florida. The two best teams, in some people's opinion, in the ACC whooped those two teams that Ole Miss lost to. And people will say, well, you can't use transitive property. And I understand that. It don't always work. But the two teams that you lost to Ole Miss, and you're saying this and this about this conference, well, guess what? This conference took your conference to task.
Okay. Those were the two, two of the top teams in that conference beating two of the weaker teams in the SEC. I mean, do we want to see like, how about we put Georgia up against NC State? Or we saw Tennessee play NC State this year.
Mm-hmm.
Or Ole Miss played Wake Forest this year and absolutely buried them. Took them behind the woodshed.
Ole Miss, my God, they had a pitiful non-conference schedule.
Yeah,
We'll say that
so I mean, like
the Florida loss doesn't look as bad right now compared to what it would have possibly. Go ahead, Sean.
And Miami beat Florida the first week of the year when they were a complete mess. That Florida team at the beginning of the year when they were, getting whooped by Texas A&M, and it looked like Billy Napier was updating his LinkedIn on an hourly basis.
Oh yeah,
like that's not the same team that Ole Miss played the second to last week of the year. Like like anybody that makes this argument, like, how do we know the Big 12 is a crappy conference? We know nobody in that league is impressive. We can state with a fairly high degree of confidence that league is much, much, much worse than the SEC and the Big Ten. It's and you know what? As we see all the time when lower ranked teams play above, or teams that play lower competition all the year, eventually they'll get exposed. And my prediction is the ACC teams and Arizona State are going to get flattened in the playoffs this year. That's my prediction. And we'll see if I'm right. We'll see if I'm wrong. I think Texas is going to absolutely bury Clemson. I don't think that game will be close. I think Penn State will soundly beat SMU. And then Arizona State's going to get absolutely. I mean, Texas is going to do bad things against Arizona State when they play them.
You think Texas is going to bury Clemson and Arizona State like Joe Pesci in an Iowa cornfield at the end of the casino?
That's funny. Funny how?
I'll say this, Sean. If Boise wins it all, Sean, your argument, people will come back on that and say it doesn't matter.
I have absolutely zero fear of that because there's basically no chance that's going to happen. There's basically, if any of Boise, Clemson, SMU, or Arizona State win the national title, I will take back everything I've said about this system. I give that about a 0.001% chance of happening. Any of those teams running the table here. I don't think that's it. We may see like one upset in this. I think mostly we're going to see a lot of teams get exposed in this.
Man, B Bean is having some fun with you tonight, man.
I have not been paying that much attention here.
It's all right, man. Jay Snow is asking, where is Chris Foot when we need him? How did BYU do in 1980?
I think it was 80. I think it was 84 when they did
1984 BYU.
Yeah. Yeah, but see, BYU won that national championship that year. They beat a 6-5 Michigan team in their bowl game to win it, and they played basically nobody the entire year. I mean, do you really respect that as a national championship?
There needs to be like a ranking of worst ranked national champions of all time. That would be a neat video.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a pretty cool story. Mm-hmm. All righty, Sean. This upcoming Sunday, we'll have to reenact that famous scene from Goodfellas at some point during the show.
Absolutely.
There's gonna be a way where we segue into it.
Who's bringing the shovel?
Ben.
I don't know.
Ben can bring the shovel.
Spider, give me a fucking drink. Okay, Spider, give me a fucking drink. Okay. I'm like Humphrey Bogart in the Oklahoma kid. Yeah, bomb it.
I do want to say the game I'm most interested in this playoff. I do think Indiana Notre Dame is really, really intriguing. There, I think that's. I saw that tickets on the resale market are already the lowest you can get is over $1,000 for that game.
Honestly, Sean, that's the game I'm least looking forward to. I feel like Notre Dame might run them out of the building.
I mean, if they do, that will say a lot. If it's a close competitive game, I mean, I don't know. Notre Dame doesn't really score tons and tons either, so I think Indiana can stay in it. I think the problem with Indiana is they just don't really have the depth. And I'll talk more with Jeffrey about this on Thursday night because I'd like to go into this game in depth. Hopefully, he and Will can both show up and we can have a little discussion about that game. But I think that those two teams are in the same state and they basically never play each other. So,
and you can check out Sean Garner, see what he's got to say on the sports world and all other events in the United States of America and much, much more on X and on Blue Sky. Stay tuned.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate the therapy session here. So,
you're welcome, man. That's what we're here for tonight.
Take care.
You too. And we got a man who's been waiting in the wings for a long, long while. We got our buddy, Hummus Hero. How you doing tonight?
Hey, gentlemen. I'm doing all right. Been enjoying hearing everybody's takes. Hope you guys are well.
Oh, we're doing very well. I'm just kind of making sure
the Cowboys won.
I'm just playing my part, trying to calm Bama Nation down a little bit. Just be like, here you go. Here's your bottle. Here's your bottle.
Yeah, I'm a Bengals fan, Austin. The end of that game was probably pretty rough for you guys, huh?
I mean, I know
I'll
like
say
the
this,
Bengals, I know that the Bengals won against the Cowboys tonight, but still though, 5-8 with Joe Burrow, that's less with more. I mean, maybe it's just me, but Zach Taylor has got to go. He's like the Nets Mike McCarthy. And I don't mean that in a nice way.
Well, he had them going well. I think the defense is just the defensive backfield's really not great this year. Some injuries and different things going on there. So I don't know. I don't want to heap it all because everybody loves Zach Taylor a few years back. So I'm not sure on that. We'll see. I say give him one more year. See what happens. But yeah, at the end of the game, I know this is college football chat, but at the end of the game, the Cowboys blocked a punt, and then
oh Lord, he's gonna do it.
The Cowboys blocked a punt, and the player for the Cowboys tried to recover it, and it hit off of him. Whereas if he just would have let it bounce, then they would have got the ball on like the 40-yard line. But he tried to recover it and muffed it, so the Bengals ended up getting it back and got a fresh set of downs off of a block punt, which is very strange. And then they went down, and about 4 plays later, they scored and won the game.
I'll say this, Hummus. Congrats to you all. I noticed this because I went back and watched it, but we face masked Joe Burrow on that last stop for you all punted. Yeah. And I think that was the football gods saying, okay, we let you all get away with that one. Guess what? What, Cowboys? You ain't going to get away with this. The Bengals are going to win this game.
That's the second time that happened this year, too, that Burrow got face masked and it didn't get called. It happened on in a play against – who was that against? Was it the Rams or Chargers? I can't remember. It happened in another game earlier in the year, and it didn't get called, and it was crucial, too, right at the end of the game. and the football gods didn't smile on them that time, and they lost. So like, it's just odd scenario. But enough talk
Yeah.
about the pro. Enough talk about the pro sport. I want to talk about when I finally decided to enter into the call-in chat. It was when everybody was talking about how unfair this well, oh, this is unfair, this is unfair. College football has always been perhaps the most unfair sport, like in all aspects. I mean, you can go all the way back to Ivy League teams playing 2 games, getting crowned national champs, to the service academies having a stockpile of players due to the draft after they would get sent back home, and they would win national championships from that, which is cool, don't get me wrong, but it was kind of a unfair scenario for everybody that they were playing against, and had some really great teams from it. But I mean, you can just keep going. Like there's in every era, there's basically been something that was unfair. Like in the 1960s up till the mid 70s, most of the northern schools were like fully integrated, and the southern ones weren't. And most of the time, they didn't play each other. And the reality is that the southern teams were getting voted national champs a lot of the times without playing the northern schools, where they probably would have been exposed, because, as we all know, an integrated team is typically just going to be better than one that isn't. You know what I mean? So, like, 1961, Ohio State and Alabama, I believe, both share a national title. And Ohio State was like pretty fully integrated at that point. They had like Paul Warfield, a black NFL Hall of Fame halfback who ended up wide receiver, played for the undefeated Miami Dolphins team. But that's just an example, you know what I mean? So like, and you can keep going to all kinds of things. It's always been unfair, so in a way. And then the other thing is that it was always unfair too, because at one point there were no scholarship limits, and the blue bloods would just stockpile players. And then you had the bagmen that would, the richer schools behind the scenes would be buying players. Like, so in a way, I say that what's going on right now is actually kind of poetic justice to all those little schools. And, one side of me, being a fan of a big time program and a blue blood, says, oh no, this is unfair. The Big Ten kind of didn't schedule for equity this year, and they tried to pit as many blue bloods against each other as they could for ratings. Like, I mean, if you go through the schedule, you'll look at it like Ohio State, USC, and Michigan, the 3 biggest brands in the conference, they all got a draw of at least 2 of the others, if you include Penn State and Oregon, who are moneymakers too. They all played at least 2. And then if you look at the lower tier teams, most of them only played 1. So like, the reality is the Big Ten did it to Ohio State, so like Ohio State can't really complain at anybody but the league office for them not recognizing that Indiana was going to be good. Because Sean's right. You know what I mean? Like, nobody in the Big Ten played a comparable schedule to Ohio State. It's just the reality. And were they maybe a little, I'm not trying to make excuses, but were they maybe a little spent and a little bit tired going into that Michigan game? Maybe they were. Maybe they were a little bruised and beat up, and it was a cold day, and Michigan wanted it more that day. Credit to them. But the reality is that nobody else in the conference faced 3 top 10 teams. It was only Ohio State. And it was partially due to luck of the draw, but also, like I said, partially due to inequitable scheduling. So, that's what's going to happen. You're going to see it in the SEC. You're going to see it in the Big Ten. This is all driven by money, and you'll see it every year. You'll see Texas playing Alabama. You'll see Ohio State playing your USC and Oregon. And you'll see Indiana playing Rutgers. Like, it'll happen,
Yeah.
But here's the thing what gets me about that, Hummus and Jackson. Then when let's say for example, Texas Alabama play, like, the Alabama fans are already fussing. Not you, Jackson. Not you. You're good people. Alabama fans are already fussing and saying, why did we play Georgia? What was the point of that if that didn't help us get anywhere? And part of it is I understand that you beat the SC champs. There should be something for that. But the problem is, though, is you followed it up with 2 terrible losses. Like, you kind of bit yourself in the butt there, Bama. Go ahead, good buddy.
Well, it was just like we were blaming the non-con when really it should have been
Yeah,
the
that too.
Oklahoma loss. It's like I saw AD getting himself ratioed on Twitter when he did that. I was like, oh my god! Like, why would you why would you just post something so stupid? Like, oh, the non-con skits. Like, oh my god! Like, I don't like this making easy non-conference because I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think I'm gonna be having a good attitude on the post game shows. Like for the weeks where we have cupcake games, like it's just gonna be. I'm gonna do my best, but it would be kind of like asking me to sell a used car and tell everybody that's the best car ever. It's not. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
I wanna be able to do like I want to see. I don't want to see Alabama cancel house because if that happens, I'm gonna be having a hissy fit before I know it. Oh man.
Yeah, I can kind of see where they're coming from though, with saying things like, "What's the use in scheduling these hard non-conference games?" Because kind of like what I was saying before about maybe Ohio State actually was. Everybody thinks that these players are out there like robots, like it's a video game. But I mean, like it's hard, and it's why NFL teams, because the parity in the NFL is so much greater. It's hard to roll out there every week, regardless of who you're playing, if the competition level and you can't just go out there and simply out talent everybody to go out there and just win every game. You know what I mean? And I think that's what you're seeing with these mega conferences that, Oklahoma might be having a bad year, but you know what? Oklahoma still has really talented players. So it's not like Alabama was
And they're
rolling
bound to
out
pick
there
someone
and
off.
yeah, like eventually this sort of thing's just going to happen. And especially when you're going into a road environment like that. Now, once again, credit to Oklahoma, and I'm not making excuses for Alabama, but I think that you're just going to see this more and more.
Oh
And it's
yeah.
going to create more and more of these scenarios each year where we don't have a proper gauge or proper evaluation mechanisms to say, oh, well, who really was better? Your Alabama or your SMU. Because, like, yeah, sure, SMU is a great story. And I mean, they did what they did in the ACC, but like the people who say, what would their record have been if they played Alabama's schedule? They're right. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, but they're right. SMU with Alabama's schedule would have been very lucky to get 3 losses. They probably would have had 4 and maybe 5.
Yeah.
It's just the truth.
Well, and that's the thing too. Like, look at Indiana, for example. And Jeffrey brings this up on Hoosiers Live a lot, but Indiana was scheduled to play Louisville 3 years, once at a neutral site, once here in Louisville, and once up in their building. But Tom Allen was like, no. After we played them that first time, was like, no, I want to save my job. No, let's do cupcakes and yada yada yada. And that's one of the things, to your point, Hummus. It's you can see the point of if you're a team like, okay, what's the point of scheduling this if it doesn't help me or help what I'm doing? And like Ohio State and Alabama, if they schedule one another and Ohio State wins, like it's a great win. But in all reality, though, does it really do anything for Ohio State? Does it really change anybody's opinion about them? A lot of people pick them to win the Natty every year or pick them to be one of the favorites, regardless of who they beat.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially with the non-con, because like look at what happened this year. Like with what we're talking about, like they place so much weight and the current format that they have right now, they place so much weight and just getting to that conference title game. And the non-con does nothing for them. Like you can look at Clemson as an example too. Like Clemson scheduled Georgia and lost, ironically, this is kind of the opposite thing, but that didn't hurt them, and they were still able to get to the conference title game and get in. You know what I mean? So these non-conference games, in reality, they're not going to. Now, like if Clemson won and a loss to Georgia, maybe they would have been fringe without winning the conference. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's a weird thing, but like when the committee's consistently moving the goalpost from season to season, and I think even from week to week within the season, it's really hard to know like what they're going to do. You know what I mean? And then, so it leaves these administrations also in a situation, well, do we really want to do this? Like it's a risk reward type of calculus that they have to go through. So like Ohio State plays Texas next year. It's a home game. It's the beginning of a home and home.
I'm so excited about that game. How you feeling about it, Hummus?
Yeah, I mean, it should be really fun. We played a home and home with Texas in, was it 2005 and 2006?
Yep, 2005 and 2006. They were both on ABC.
Yeah, and lost the first year at home when Ryan Hamby dropped a easy touchdown pass in the end zone. And then the second year was after Vince Young was gone, and Ohio State beat Texas and really propelled them to that unbeaten season going into the game against Florida in the BCS championship, where they ultimately got beat. So it was fun watching that, but I think that Ohio State's already going to have enough meat on the bone, so to speak, with their schedule next year anyways, because now if you're in the Big Ten or SEC, I mean, do you really need more bumps and bruises that you're already going to have to take? It's kind of what I'm saying. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love seeing the intersectional rivalries or intersectional games. But like the reality is, especially in the Big Ten now, I mean, they're built in, you know what I mean? So like you're going to be playing something that was an intersectional game, mandatory, 2 of them each year in the Big Ten. You're going to get one West Coast game on the road, and you're going to get one West Coast team coming to you. So, I'd like to see Ohio State play teams from the ACC and SEC also, but we do kind of have those built-in pack games, the little fragment of the pack that's in the Big Ten now. So I don't know. It's an odd scenario. It's a strange kind of beginning of a new era in college football, and I think it's a feeling out process for a lot of things, for how the committee's going to move forward in the playoff and perhaps restructure the format. Because I'm not like completely taking a counter position to Sean with what I was saying earlier. But I can see both sides of it. You know what I mean? I can see the little guy getting a chance, and I think there's value in that. But I can also see the other teams, like I said, like the Alabama this year, where it's like, hey, we just got beat up all year long. We had one of the top 10 strength of schedule, and, we're being compared to a team that has the 50th ranked strength of schedule. So.
Honest.
That's like Indiana.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jackson. Go ahead.
I'm just hoping that this upcoming off season doesn't get as crazy as this as 2024 off season was. Because like, my God, that was nuts.
And thing too, I want to bring up it. Not to cut you off there, Hummus, but like Indiana and Texas. I mean, the best teams they played, they lost to. I mean, so it's not just the ACC and Big 12. I dislike the fact people are singling them out, thinking it's just them. It's Indiana, Texas. It's within these conferences too. Like, I'm sorry, yeah. Indiana's schedule was pee poor. Other than Ohio State, their claim to fame is Nebraska, Washington, Michigan, I guess now.
Yeah.
You're telling me Michigan's a better win than Georgia?
No, I agree with you. It's on average. So the likelihood that the
Mhm.
likelihood in the ACC or the Big 12 that you're going to have a much easier path is higher. You know what I mean? But especially in the Big 10, you're going to see this more than anywhere else, where you're going to have very inequitable scheduling, partially, like I said, due to media partnerships and them wanting big ratings. So you're going to see the big dogs pitted against each other. I'm not saying they're going to do it like to the point where it's obvious, but like if you go through the schedules this year for the Big Ten, you will see it. It did happen. Like the bigger brands played more games against the bigger brands. The smaller brands played more games against the smaller brands. Like it simply happened on average. So that's part of it. But also, with 18 teams in a conference, even if you try to schedule equitably, you're still going to end up with stuff that slips through the cracks. So like Indiana wasn't supposed to be a good team this year, you know, and so it worked out well for Indiana because they weren't scheduled with the toughest path. And it just so happened that the
Mhm.
teams like Michigan and Ohio State that ended up with Indiana on their schedule, and they were a really good team. You know,
Mhm.
they get an extra game like that. So it's going to make it even harder for them to go through and schedule equitably too with the transfer portal.
Mhm.
You know, with the transfer portal and
Mhm.
NIL and a turnaround occurring in 1 year, like what happens with the Indiana or TCU previously, like you could see this more and more often. And
Mhm.
there's only 9 conference games, so the reality is each Big Ten team, even playing 9 conference games, which is more than what the ACC and SEC do. There's 2 extra teams versus versus those conferences, so you're still only going to play, you know, a little bit more than 50% of the conference. So you're going to see
Mhm.
some dramatic things happen here. So it's just a really strange thing, and there's no true way to remedy it. Like in the NFL, they schedule for they use the previous season's winning percentage, and it equals out pretty well
Mhm.
because you know there's a
Mhm.
salary cap rate, and you can only do so much in free agency and the draft. Like you'll end up with a team that has a harder schedule, but it'll never be as dramatic as what you see in college football, even within a single conference.
Mhm. Yeah, it's just funny to me that some of the Ohio State fans, not specifically you or Sean Hummus, but some of them were really like upset and distraught. Like, how does the Big Ten do this to us? Why did they give us Indiana before rivalry week? And some of them were even saying that's why Michigan ended up winning because you all put all your energy into that game. Here's the thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the Big Ten scheduled these games months in advance, correct? Before the season even, like a year in
Yeah,
advance, correct?
even.
Okay.
Usually they would make the schedules multiple years in advance. They would do it
Yep.
like 3-4 years in advance, but this individual year they had to reset all the schedules because Washington
Yeah.
and Oregon entered into the conference, so they had to remake all the schedules. But I definitely
Hmm.
think that
And
I'm not saying that that is a valid excuse with the Indiana thing. Like, I mean, it is what it is. Like you know, you lost the game. Like they should have been
mhm.
able to win the game, and it was a close game. But the Big Ten clearly didn't think that Indiana was going to be a good team. This has nothing to do with Michigan, but
Yeah.
the Big Ten didn't think Indiana was going to be a good team. And there's one really easy way to show this. Typically, anytime you see a matchup game, like a game that you know, oh, this is 2 awesome programs, one program will never get a bye before the matchup game if the other program doesn't. And Indiana got the bye before Ohio
Alabama,
State.
LSU.
Which, did that happen?
Alabama, LSU both get buys. It's been a tradition for a long time. They both get buys before they play one another. Like
Oh,
Alabama doesn't play an Ole Miss or doesn't play or doesn't play anybody. They get a buys. Whereas like Michigan and Ohio State regularly, they always play someone, correct, Thomas? Not to cut
Oh
you
yeah,
off.
yeah, and that's fine. Either way. But I'm saying that if it's a matchup game and it's a big time game and or especially a rivalry
Mm-hmm.
game, you would expect that because having a bye can be an advantage. You know what I mean? So you get an extra week to prepare. You get an extra week of rest. So what I'm saying is the Big Ten clearly didn't think that Indiana Ohio State was going to be a matchup game because Indiana had a bye leading into the game and Ohio State didn't. And you would see that typically because they think that Ohio State's just going to roll out there and beat them anyways. Why does it matter? You know what I mean? And they did anyways, ironically. But my point is it just shows that the Big Ten, I don't think, valued Indiana leading into the season. Which nobody did. Nobody did. So.
And
Like,
if somebody
people-
in that office did, I want to know what the winning lottery numbers are according to them.
Indiana's a great story. Don't get me wrong. They're a great story, but I see the argument with the strength of schedule and them not playing anybody really other than Ohio State and losing to Ohio State. I mean, they did play Michigan, and they beat Michigan. And once again, everybody wants to say, "Oh, Michigan's terrible," and this and that, and they're so bad. But like, you're judging Michigan on prior Michigan. You know what I mean? Like Michigan's not a terrible team. They weren't a terrible team this year.
No.
They once again they played a ridiculously hard schedule. They played a SEC level schedule. They played a schedule just like Alabama or Georgia did. Their top 10 strength of schedule. They played Texas. They played Oregon. They played Ohio State. They played USC. Who else am I forgetting? Michigan
they played Washington. Washington
Illinois,
at night.
Washington, Illinois. I mean, Michigan played a
Oregon.
Like, I hate to be this person, but once again, if you give Michigan SMU's schedule, is Michigan in the CFP? Let's be realistic. They might be. I mean, yeah, they lost to a lot of these teams, but like if you take 3 of those teams off of their schedule, then they only have maybe 2 losses. You know what I mean? Like they're not a terrible team. Like, are they a great team? No. Like, they're not a vintage Michigan team, but like they played a really tough schedule. It is what it is. So I don't know.
And John and TJ from the Michigan channel, their famous quote, Hummus, is, if JJ McCarthy was quarterback, and what would Michigan's record be? And a lot of people said probably 10-2. And I could see that. And I'll even be honest with you, I had Michigan going back to the Big Ten title game this year. That, in hindsight, it's not really that bad of a decision because Michigan's defense was what held them up a lot of this year, in my opinion. But like you said, their scheduling just caught up to them. Like going to Washington at night, a national title rematch, and they're going to be motivated. Oregon, this is not a favorable schedule.
Yeah, and it was a transitional year, and they kind of got the rug pulled out from underneath of them early in the year with that Texas game. You know what I mean? So like, if they would have had a slow ramp up, and then
Did you lose your connection?
Well, this is an interesting question, Jackson. How many teams in that playoff could survive Florida's schedule? I would say 3. What about you, Jackson?
3. Like 2 to 3.
Probably Oregon. I would say Oregon, Ohio State, and maybe Penn State.
I don't think Penn State could survive that. No.
And 1-2 says Michigan. Well, that's true, Jackson. Think about it, though.
I agree.
It's like Oklahoma. Are they really that bad of a team? Are they what their record says they are? Not really. Oklahoma, honestly, they're kind of like Michigan in a way. I know that sounds crazy, but if they just figured out their quarterback play, they could have been 8-4, 7-5. They could have picked somebody off a lot sooner than Bama. It saved you all the trouble.
Yeah. Well, Hamas,
This is a good one.
who do you think could win it all in your eyes? Hamas, type in the private chat if you can hear us. There we go. Chat, how you feeling about the chat? Yeah, here we go. There you go. Can you hear us, Hamas? Good grief.
Jason O says Arizona State could have survived Florida's schedule. I don't know about that. Jason, I get you. You love you some Cam Scataboo, but Arizona State.
Scataboo, Scooby Dooby Doo. Well, great call from Hamas Hero. We appreciate you calling in on the show tonight. We appreciate you very much. Oh, there you go.
Oh.
You're back. There you go. Your mic okay?
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. So I don't know how long I was talking where you couldn't hear me, but I don't know. I'm on this cheap iPad. Some Korean knockoff iPad. Sorry.
Well, it's all good, man. No worries. From the playoff field that you've seen, who do you think can win it all in your eyes?
I mean, I would probably do like probabilities. I think it really is kind of like the NFL now. I think it's all about who gets hot, like who's peaking at the right time, who can put things together, who avoids injuries, like one or two injuries as we've seen, like, I think that's what hurt Ohio State so much was losing the probably two best offensive linemen on the team. I think that really been debilitating to the running game. So, I mean, who can avoid injuries like that, but I don't know. I mean, honestly, if I had to go through and put percentage values on each team in the playoffs, like I would probably give Boise like a 2% chance maybe, and then I would maybe bump up SMU to maybe like a 4% chance, and Clemson maybe like a 6% chance, and then on up the line, I would say, the cluster of like Tennessee, Ohio State, Texas, all those kind of mid-range teams, and Penn State, I guess I'd put in there too. I'd give them all like a 10% chance, and then I'd maybe give Georgia like a little bit of an elevated chance, and I think partially because I think they have an easier side of the bracket. So I'd maybe give Georgia like a 15% chance. And then I think I would make Oregon the favorite. Just because from what I've seen with Oregon, I'm not saying they are a complete team, but I think of if you take each team in the playoffs and you look at who has a dominant offense or defense, and like exactly how dominant they are, I think that Oregon's offense is the most dominant unit of any offense or defense in the playoff. Like I think Oregon's offense is. Now I don't think Oregon has the best defense. But that being said, like the one thing you can say that Oregon they got this much put up on them in this game and all that, but you know what? Oregon found a way to win every game. Nobody else did that, and there's something to be said for that. Now you could also say, oh well, that just means they're due. They're due to slip up now, like because I mean you've seen that before, but I don't know.
I want to add to your point, Hummus, real quick. Oregon's two best teams they played, Penn State and Ohio State, two best defenses they played. Excuse me, and Oregon put up massive points on them in yards.
Right.
And I could see why. And I could see why a lot of people would consider Oregon the favorite, right? Here's my thing. Is there a defense in that field, in the playoff field, that you think that can slow them down? Or is Oregon's defense just going to be ultimately what lets them down?
Well, I mean, like you just cited, like the reality, I'm not sure about Penn State. I keep more tabs on Ohio State statistically, but I mean, by almost every metric, Ohio State is the nation's best defense. Like points per game, yards per game, yards per play. I think they're real close with Texas and a couple other schools, but like most advanced analytics and advanced metrics, all that stuff, has Ohio State as the nation's best defense. And we've already seen what Oregon can do to those levels of defense, like you were saying. So I don't know, but the ironic thing is, like we were talking about earlier in the chat, is that the team that held Oregon in check the most was Wisconsin. So, and Wisconsin's defense is not. I mean, they were a decent defense part of the year, but they were very hit or miss. And I think Purdue, and what was it, Purdue that took them like to overtime or something and put like 45 points on them or something. So
I think it was Illinois Purdue is the game you're thinking of.
Was that Illinois?
That was the.
All right.
Maybe yes, I think so.
Was Wisconsin in a high scoring game with Northwestern? Maybe though.
Northwestern was in a high scoring game with Maryland, I believe. Let me check. Wisconsin smacked Rutgers off the face of the earth 42-7. They beat Northwestern 23-3.
Oh wow. All right, so for the most part, Wisconsin's defense was pretty good. Then I guess it looks like it, but I don't think that they're quite as good as some of the defenses that Oregon could potentially play. I think Texas is a really good defense, and it's all about matchups. So like maybe Texas is the team that will just be able to stop Oregon. I don't know. There's a potential of that.
They've got. The thing with Oregon, Hummus, is they've got a lot of speed. And as they say, speed kills. So the matchup that I want to see is, can these corners, whoever they end up matching up with, can they just match speed with them? Or can they scheme up something like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did for Tyreek Hill? Like somehow kill the speed of this team. Because you do that, Oregon's in trouble. Like, because Wisconsin was able to do that, and it showed. They were able to kill their speed a little bit, and Dylan Gabriel, even though he was still getting his yards in, he wasn't getting them in chunks like they like to. I think that's what you need to slow them down to beat them. Get the right defensive scheme going.
Yeah, I think you've got to use the scheme to play to your advantages when you're facing a team that has that level of athletes. And also not shoot yourself in the foot. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I hate to go back to it, but like what Ryan Day and the offensive game plan was in the Ohio State Michigan game, like you have to use your strengths. You can't just try to bully a team, and it goes both ways, offensively and defensively. You got to play to your strengths and try to out scheme the others based on that. So we'll see, but I think that if I was to place a wager, I'm not a betting man, but if I was to place a wager, I would probably place it on Oregon, even though I think they do have a harder path. Like if I look at it saying who has the easiest path to get to the national title game, I think it's probably Georgia. I think Georgia's side of the bracket's a little bit easier. I'm not saying look, nobody's going to have an easy path.
No.
Like you guys were saying earlier, and other people have pointed out, like SMU, you can say whatever, oh, maybe it should have been Alabama, oh, whatever, but like SMU's a good team. You know what I mean? They might not be elite, but like, you know, Penn State's going to have to beat SMU. They're not going to beat themselves, I don't think. And you know, so nobody has a cakewalk through this thing. Some teams luck of the draw or luck of the committee rooms, seatings, whatever you want to chalk it up to. Some teams are going to have a little bit rougher of a path. You know, your Ohio State or Tennessee are really going to have to go through a gauntlet to get there. But whoever gets hot and like I said, whoever gets hot and whoever can avoid injuries, will end up winning this thing.
And I'll say this too. If Penn State wins the national title, SMU, Boise, I don't care who they beat to get there, in my opinion, they won the national title. They are the best team, in my opinion. I look at it that way. You beat who you beat to get there.
Yep. Yeah, and like I was saying earlier, like, you know, it's kind of poetic justice that the little guys get a chance now, and it's great to see. So, you know, if SMU or one of these teams can go on a Cinderella run, and who knows what could happen. I know it's highly improbable, but that's why I'll use the DeReal MVP 2%, 1 or 2% thing that he said about Michigan last year, which I think was a bad take, because I think most people could see entering into the year that they were going to be a real contender. But you know, I'll give those little guys a couple percentage points chance in this playoff, because you never know what can happen, and there is more parity than ever.
B-Bean, I like to dream, okay? I'm tired of these SEC teams winning. I would be happy with Ohio State winning. I just don't want no SEC teams to win. I'm tired of them winning. Sorry, Jackson.
It's the SEC fatigue. Everybody's got it after 15 years of SEC dominance.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like after the 80s, everybody had Miami fatigue. People had Nebraska fatigue, USC fatigue, Alabama fatigue, and now we're seeing people have Georgia fatigue.
Yeah, you're always the most hated too when you win. You know, and like Ohio State hasn't even won people still love to hate Ohio State. They haven't even won a national title in 11 years now, but people still just want to hate them. You know what I mean? And it's partially because of the media hype. You know what I mean? Like Ohio State, like everybody points out, like Ohio State either gets picked to win the national title or be close every year. So people just have it in their mind. I want to see them lose. I want to see them lose. I want to see the media proven wrong. I want to see this hype derailed, you know? It's the same thing with Georgia, and it was Clemson a couple years back, you know? It's always the same thing. So
B-Bean saying, Austin, you don't like this. 2006 to 2023 Natty wins, SEC 13, ACC 3, Big Ten 2, Pac-12, Big 12 0. Listen, listen, it's good to have change, okay? Like, it creates balance, because if Alabama, Georgia just won every single year, that would get kind of boring. Come on. You can't even tell me, unless you're a fan of that team, you don't like seeing a Cinderella story win, or a team that hasn't won it in years.
Yeah,
Austin, go buy a Tennessee jersey for Christmas. Why?
So, I mean, obviously, I'm going to be wanting to see Ohio State win it, but like, if Ohio State doesn't win it, I would like to see Boise win it. If not, you know what I mean, or SMU, or like you said, whoever hasn't won it. It's fun to see a fan base get to celebrate, and a state or a part of the country that doesn't see as much success in the sport, you know, get to celebrate. Like TCU was a great story that year, and it was a shame how they went out against Georgia, but like, you know, it's cool when you see it. We see it all the time in the NCAA tournament with basketball, and it'll be fun to see. For the first time, we get to see a lot of teams get to compete for it all at the end of the year. So it'll be fun.
It's just like And it's just like, I'll leave it at this. Even if it's just 1 year that Arizona State, Boise, SMU, Penn State, even some of these bigger teams, Indiana or Notre Dame, even if it's just 1 year they win it, it's 1 year that we get to see their fan base happy, celebrating. I won't speak for you, Jackson, or you, Hummus, but if Indiana wins, I'm not going to be upset. And some people may say, well, you're a Louisville fan. Shouldn't you be upset Indiana winning? We really don't have that much of a rivalry with them when it comes to football. Our more issue with them is in basketball. I'll be happy with it. And I'm sure, Hummus, you all have beaten them so many times. You're like, good for you, Indiana.
Oh,
Jackson, you probably don't care.
Oh, I feel bad for Indiana sometimes. Like after the game this year, I was like, well, Indiana's still Indiana. I mean, after like I sometimes I'll talk to my mom about college football because she kind of pays attention a little bit, but like she'll be like, when's the last time Indiana won? And I'll be like, it was when I was like 6 years old, Mom. Like,
Well,
I'm
well, of
42.
course, the last time they beat Ohio State was in 1988, but the last time an Indiana-Ohio State matchup didn't result in an Ohio State victory was in 1990, where it ended in a tie.
Yeah, 1990.
The
Yeah,
John
so,
Cooper era.
but I mean, you know, every dog has their day, so to speak. So sooner or later, Indiana will beat the Buckeyes. It'll happen. You know, it might be 36 more or 38 years. Who knows from now? But like, it'll happen if we don't blow up the planet first, anyways.
Oh yeah.
Yes. So you're telling me the Cowboys have a chance to win the Super Bowl, Hummus? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, it'll happen again.
Well, the Ohio State Buckeyes and Indiana aren't going to play again until 2026.
Yeah, that's a shame. But I'm sure they're kind of happy about it. They're probably kind of happy about it, but at the same time, it's like, well, we don't get a chance to beat them. You know, and now they have things rolling right in the right direction. You know, and it looks like, you know, I hate to say it, but it looks like Ohio State could. I'm not saying they're going to go down the drain, but you know, I think Ohio State could be back to a position where more teams, they're more gettable. You know what I mean, with parity and everything that we're seeing with coaching situation. So Indiana continues to stay where they're at, and Ohio State does, and like these games would be more competitive. So, but once again, it's a new nature of the Big Ten Conference and college football. You're not going to see all the same teams play every year anymore. So, but let's see this question: who is the best Ohio State quarterback in your opinion? Well, you know, as far as like best in terms of like most talented, I think I'd probably say CJ Stroud in my lifetime, you know, like the pinpoint accuracy and just he's a great quarterback. My favorite quarterback would probably be Justin Fields, just because I think he had such heart and he's such a phenomenal athlete. You know, but Ohio State really hasn't.
The way the Bears did him.
Yeah.
The way the Bears did Justin Fields, that was just wrong. That kid, Justin Fields is a good quarterback. I don't care what anybody tells you. He's good. He just needs an O-line.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's a decent NFL quarterback. I think he could be a starter, but I don't think he'll ever be like I don't think he'll ever be an MVP level quarterback. I mean, you never know. He has great legs. In the right system, you never know what could have happened. But luck of the draw, he got you know, sent to the graveyard of quarterbacks there in Chicago, and we'll see what Caleb Williams can do. Like he didn't start off so hot this year, but I think he actually has been doing a little bit better. So, but yeah, answer that question. Well, actually, let me go back. My actual favorite Ohio State quarterback is Joe Burrow, but you know, I know that's going to be controversial. I think that's going to be a controversial thing when you say that, but like technically he is an Ohio State quarterback, so even though he never started and
Yeah,
never
that
really
is true.
played. He's still a Buckeye. He has a degree from Ohio State, and like he actually credited at the Super Bowl media day when they were in the Super Bowl. He actually was asked by the reporters, and he said that Ohio State was part of what made him who he was, and he actually credited Ryan Day, the year that he spent with them, with helping to develop him and everything else. So
I heard his dad was betting on him. I kid you not. Like he was like bet money on his son winning a lot. That's quite a lot of confidence.
yeah, he always thought that because Joe was a tremendous high school quarterback. You know what I mean? Like he was great here.
Yeah, I've heard through the grapevine hummus on a lot of different teams, but I heard Lamar Jackson wanted to play for Ohio State, but you all turned him down because y'all didn't think he was going to be anything. I don't know how true that is or not, but I've heard that over the years.
Oh goodness! And could you imagine if you would have, like? Don't get me wrong. Once again, I love JT Barrett. He's another, like, he's a Buckeye great heart. Like similar to Justin Fields, great leader, great heart. You know, gave it everything that he had. But could you imagine if that era, the 2016 and 2017 Ohio State had?
Oh my gosh! Can you imagine back-to-back national champions? I think you could say that probably.
I think it probably would have happened.
Oh yeah.
But you know, there's a lot of ifs and buts like that in the sports world.
For sure.
Yeah, we wouldn't have seen Tua's pass to Devontae in 2017. That would have been Ohio State in that situation with Lamar running all over Georgia.
Probably, yeah. And then, well, the biggest one with Ohio State fans is always like the what ifs with Joe Burrow, like because part of what caused Joe Burrow to lose the job that year to Dwayne Haskins is that he had hurt his hand. So the competition leading up in the spring, which developed a pecking order behind Barrett, had Haskins ahead. And then when Barrett went down in the Michigan game, Haskins came in and won the game. So that led into the next year where Haskins was going to be the starter because Barrett was gone. And, you know, that's when Burrow decided to transfer. You know, and the next year, Haskins had a phenomenal year, and he was a really good quarterback in college, too. But the weird thing is that 2019 year, if Ohio State would have had Burrow, he was like, once again, I love Justin Fields, but Burrow was on another level that year. If Ohio State would have had the 2019 Joe Burrow, not only would have they probably got past Clemson, but also LSU wouldn't have had Burrow. So it's another weird scenario because all of those teams were in the playoffs together. But
I want to bring this up real fast, Thomas, before we go. B Bean says, "What about Kyle McCord?" I don't know if he's trying to pull your trigger or what, but
McCord is
I don't think he was that bad.
No, McCord was.
I don't think he was that bad.
He's a decent quarterback, and you know I think that he probably got better this year. You know, so if he would have stuck around, I don't think they really shoved him out. Like I think if he would have stuck around, like they probably would have brought in a transfer anyways. But you never know; he might have beat out Will Howard at the beginning of the year, and he might have been playing right now. So it's hard to say.
I'll always remember, Hummus, that Notre Dame game. You know, after he went the way he won that game for you all, I was like, you know what? I normally don't like rooting for Ohio State, but I was rooting for him in that moment. I was like, come on, Kyle McCord. Just go down and prove to everybody that you can lead a team down when the situation's against you. And when he did, I was like, yes. And some people, and I know we don't do that for Ohio State, but I did for him because I like Kyle McCord. He's got a good story.
He did, and that was a good game at the end there. But if you remember on that final drive, he actually did throw a ball straight to the Notre Dame linebacker who just dropped it. Like
Yeah.
he almost ended the game on that drive. Everybody just remembers that he let them down the field and they scored on that drive with the 10 men on the field thing. But like he actually threw a really, really bad pass that should have been picked off on that drive also. So
Yeah.
I don't know. That's
Mm.
the thing.
And
with
then he had
McCord.
And then the 3rd and 20 pass to, was it Fleming or Ibuka that he threw that was a laser shot? Improbable, but he somehow got it in there.
Oh yeah, no, McCord has really good. He has really good arm talent. Like I think that he's a good NFL prospect. I think that if his decision making and his pocket awareness could improve a little bit, I think he could be a good pro. I really do.
Yeah.
He can make all the throws. He really can. So.
Well,
It just sucks he got pushed out. Not pushed out, but sucked that he left on those terms.
what do you think, Hummus, about SEC football's take on Vrabel?
I think everybody around here would love to have Vrabel. Like, I mean, I'm still going to be pulling for Ryan Day as long as he's the head coach of the Buckeyes, but I'd be lying if I didn't say that I wouldn't rather have Vrabel.
Yeah.
But the problem is that I don't know if Vrabel wants the job.
That's a good question. He may just be wanting to go back to the NFL for another shot. So there's that.
Yeah.
Well, all righty, Hummus. Thank you for calling in. We appreciate you calling in and supporting the show. We appreciate it very much, and we'll be seeing you soon.
All right. Thanks, gentlemen. It's great talking to you as always.
Sleep well, stay safe, stay warm. It's cold out.
All righty. You too.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the both
Jackson,
of us.
how it started, how this all began. So let's update the people on our upcoming schedule, and then we will go into promoting ourselves. So don't worry, Jackson. We're still going to promote Alabama at the Voice of College Football. Don't you worry, we'll get there. But let's let the people in on our schedule. So it's gonna be a crazy couple weeks. So strap in. So we're pulling a doubleheader this week. Wednesday night, me and Jackson will be here for part 1 of Bowl Mania predictions. Since Bowl Mania starts this Saturday, me and Jackson will be here predicting those games on Wednesday. And then we're going to sit and chill. And then we're going to predict the playoff games, Bowl Mania part 2, and do Final Whistle Saturday night. All that's going to be a triple header next week. So strap in, folks. You're going to be seeing a lot of our faces here soon. So strap in, get ready, enjoy these faces because they're going to be on your television screens for a minute. And we will be here until the very end. So that's our schedule. But as for our personal schedules for our channels and stuff, well, we got to start with the most important one because this is what makes Jackson a rich millionaire that he is. Alabama at the Voice of College Football. Jackson, was it a crying session today with you and Johnny that the people need to watch? Did you and Johnny cry?
Not me, but you know how that goes. But
So they can watch Johnny cry on Alabama Live if they want.
he was not happy today. He was not happy.
All that more incentive to go check it out and to hear you and Jeffrey on the call-in show. Go ahead, buddy. Take it away. I'm stealing your thunder. Go for it.
There you go. You can tune in to the latest episode of Crimson Tide Live on Alabama with the Voice of College Football, where Johnny and I, man, I'm really tired tonight, where Johnny and I go over our take on what happened in front of our eyes. That's why you see the title as, now what? What does Alabama do? We're kicked to the curb. We did it to ourselves, that loss to Oklahoma. But you can come on in, click on that link, and you can see the 16th edition of Alabama Crimson Tide Live. And you can see the 10th edition of the call-in show on Alabama with the Voice of College Football, where you can call in on the show giving your take on Alabama football. talking to me and Jeffrey at Only Talk Sports, hearing your takes. And of course, you can check me out on Jackson Johnson 979 on YouTube, where I'm 112 subs away from the magic number 500. I need all the help I can get there. So I'm looking to get the 500 at least before the year ends, or to get a good head start on 2025. And you can check me out on more updates on my adventures of the Jacksonian, on some of my episodes on there, some future episodes I've got in the works. You can check them out on Jackson CFP on X and on Jackson Johnson 543-908. And of course, there's the college basketball recap preview show on Wednesday afternoon with Will and D and myself. Austin, what have you got going on this week?
So, like I just mentioned, Jackson, my normal Wednesday night, we'll be back here for part 1 of Bowl Mania, doing the December 14th to December 24th games. Me and Jackson will be making our picks for that. And then, of course, next week, we've got the triple header for you. We've got first round predictions. We've got Bowl Mania Part 2. And then we got Final Whistle back on Saturday after the playoffs go final. And then me and Jackson will be doing that. And then we'll be doing do the playoffs throughout. We'll be going live after every game, after every CFP, after every Natty. We'll be going live for those. And then eventually, at the end of the year, we will recap all the bowl games, what we got wrong, what we got right. And maybe if you're good, we'll do a call-in show after the playoff games. If you're good, though. If you're good. Now, if you're bad, you're grounded, and you can still stay, but you're grounded. No calling in. But in all seriousness, though, we appreciate y'all for being here. We wouldn't be here without you. That's number one. I want to recognize that. All of our great callers, Sean, Dave, Hummus, we appreciate y'all for being here, supporting us, commenting, and subscribing. Whether you're on my channel or Jackson's, helping our community grow, because that's just the goal, to have fun, enjoy one another's company, challenge each other's opinions, but not being hurtful in doing it. We all have different opinions. Jackson may think Alabama's the greatest thing since sliced bread. He's entitled to his opinion, even though I still love him. I may just disagree with him. I may think Louisville's the best team since sliced bread, and Jackson may disagree with me, but he still loves me. And that's what we're here. We're here to love one another, care for one another, and let's enjoy these playoff games. No matter who wins, let's just enjoy them. But with all that being said, we appreciate you for being here. This has been Austin Williams and my partner in crime,
Jackson Johnson.
You're up. And we wish you a good night, a farewell, a goodbye, and go Cards, everybody.
Roll Tide.
See you Wednesday.